One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet who millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Yes, everything still works. All the buttons I'm pushing. Yes, everything seems to be working. Welcome. Welcome. Where y'all been? Where y'all been? We're back. Grandson is still in town. He'll be here for one more night. So I'm going to do one show today. They're out fishing. I wish I could show you the picture. He caught a 7-foot sailfish on his first time going sport fishing. 7-foot sailfish. Whew. Ashley's going to have to find a place to put that in the house. A 7-foot sailfish on his very first time going sports fishing. There are people who spend thousands of dollars, come down every season to go out and fish, hoping they get a trophy fish like that. And my grandson, my 16-year-old grandson, on the very first time he puts a pole in the water, the boat captain yells, "Fish on," followed by OS. I'm like, what do you mean? And Robin's like texting me, "He's got a sailfish on." I'm like, oh, God. So it's 7 feet. We're going to figure out a way to make Ashley go ahead and mount it in her house. Building memories down here, people. Not just having visits. We're building memories. And so, anything been going on the last couple of days? Anything at all? Understatement. Hashtag understatement. And I see all the mods are back as well. Whew, man, feels good to be back in the chair. Even if it's just for one show today. Tomorrow we're going to do the regular 2-show thing. And I'm probably, to try and do some catch up, going to do 2 shows on Friday. Because I've had some downtime relaxing. It's been awesome. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Those of you who have followed me on X, I've been trying to keep up with the news and let you guys know what's happening. But I think you've seen it. It's craziness. It's insanity. I've got a really good interview scheduled today with Chris Moritz, who literally wrote the book about what's happening in California. He was a guest on Tucker Carlson's show, and Ashley found him and said, we got to get him on. And the timing was perfect. With everything blowing up in California, he lives in Santa Monica, which is basically a close suburb to LA. So we're going to get a great perspective on that as well. So at 1 o'clock, as you know, Karoline Leavitt, which is perfect. Usually she holds her press conferences on Tuesday. She got the word somehow through the grapevine that Barry was busy. Don't do it on Tuesday. He won't be able to do it. Grandson's at a football camp. We're going to be out there in 100-degree weather, sweating our you-know-what's off. So she said, no, we're going to wait till Barry gets some rest. We're going to do it on Wednesday. So everything worked out fine. At least I told myself that. Whatever. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the real news of the day. You see, what you're seeing on television isn't real news. What you're seeing on television is manufactured. What you're seeing on television is meant to, I don't know, propagandize you, to make you think what you're seeing is real when it's not real. It's astroturf. The thing, and I keep telling you, the thing is to pay attention to what's really important to you and to your family. So if you got up this morning and you checked the news and the headlines, the real headlines, you would realize that some things happened this morning at about 8:30 that really is going to impact your life. Extremely impact your life. Couple things happened. One overnight and this one as well. But this one, first and foremost, let's talk about this. I'm sure it's going to be a huge topic of the press conference. Our deal with China is done. All right, so the deal is done, subject to final approval with President Xi and me. Full magnets and any necessary rare earths will be supplied upfront by China. Likewise, we will provide to China what was agreed to, including Chinese students using our colleges and university, which has always been a good thing with me. We are getting a total of 55% tariffs, and China's getting 10%. Relationship is excellent. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Yes, of course, we're putting our attention on this matter, as well as you should be. Turn off the damn television. Run away from everything you're seeing. It makes no sense whatsoever. This is what matters. Yes, the stuff that you see on your screen right now, I took the wrong window, but let me just pull this down so you can actually see it. This is what matters. The fact that they solidified a deal with China means get your seatbelts on. Things are about to take off. I mean, take off in an epic way. It's just starting to get its wheels under it right now. Up 96 points, or 0.23, just jumped to 103. Things are starting, some profit taking is going to happen, and then boom. Are you ready? Because this is what really matters. Your ability to take care of your family, your loved ones, not the insanity in California. That is not what really matters. Not the craziness in New York or Chicago. That is a distraction to keep your eyes off of what Donald Trump is doing for America. Don't let them distract you. Take advantage of what's happening. I watched some posts and some shows while I was offline, and I'm thinking to myself, how are people not talking about this? How are people not talking about essentially a nearly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that's being put right before you? I told you weeks ago, watch for China, watch for China. Oh, here comes China. I also told you, and let me just check this out, and many of you will say, yeah, Barry, you did say it. I told you what was going to happen with this. I specifically said there are nothing wrong with the fundamentals of this company. This company is on solid ground. Its product is fantastic. All of its fundamentals make sense. The only thing holding this company back was emotion. And looky here. Look at what we got going on here. A rebound in Tesla. Some of you listened, some of you didn't. But in any regard, those of you who did are now seeing the fruits of what I've been telling you. In fact, I'm seeing if I can find the newest thing here. But it seems as though the first bro is back in the fold, apologizing to President Trump. I'm speaking, of course, about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is now apologized, at least he's showing. First, he tweeted out a heart to President Trump. Then he tweeted out an actual apology. Let me see if I could actually bring that in so you guys can see it yourself. So when you're looking at these things, understand that what's hurt the market somewhat in terms of what Elon was doing. Now, again, that emotion is what you have to look forward to when it shifts the other way. Let me see if I can get that tweet for you, or post, whatever you want to call them these days. Where is that? He posts so much it's going on. I didn't have it saved. But anyway, yes, he posted out that he's sorry for what happened. It was like at 3 o'clock in the morning when I saw it. Yeah, here it is. I regret some of my posts about President Trump last week. They went too far. Well, that's not like a full-throated apology, but it was enough to cause things to go, oh, things are getting better. The first bro's coming back. Of course he's coming back. He was always coming back. It was always meant to throw people off. Told you that too. Now look, I don't like patting myself on the shoulder too much, but sometimes things are so crazy you have to look at them and say, SV, SV is sending me, hit news as he goes. He doesn't know I already got this stuff logged in. I'm going to show you right now what's important to you. Before Karoline comes in, let's see if we can't get to enough of what's really important. Check this out.
Our May read on the Consumer Price Index on the headline number, expected up 0.2, comes in on the light side, up 0.1%. That follows, at least for now, unrevised up 0.2. Up 0.1 will be the lightest since it was minus 0.1 in March of this year. If you strip out the all-important food and energy, it remains up 0.1%. That's 0.2 lighter than we were expecting, 0.1 lighter than the rear view mirror. Up 0.1 equals where we were in March of this year. To find a lower number, you're going to 0, which was January of 21. Now let's take the year-over-year perspective. Expecting year-over-year headline up 2.4, and it arrives exactly up 2.4. That is 0.1 hotter than our last look at 2.3. It equals the 2.4 in March. 2.8 was February. That's the higher number we're comping to. Finally, if we go year-over-year core ex food and energy, it's up 2.8, 0.1 lighter than we were expecting, equals where we were last month. 2.8 actually now is third consecutive month in a row. If you want a smaller number than that, you're going all the way back to March of 21 when it was up 1.6. Inflation certainly looks like it is cooling a bit.
The estimates call for a gain of 0.2% month over month. Year over year, we're expecting a gain of 2.5%. Core is expected to be up 0.3%, and year over year is expected to be up 2.1%. That is much better than expected, up 0.1%. 2.4% year over year. That also better than expected on the CPI, up 0.1% versus an estimate of up 0.2% year over year. We got a gain of 2.4% versus an estimate of 2.5%. Jake.
Well, John, look, we got another month of positive inflation news. Despite these historic tariffs, the latest numbers do show that inflation remained relatively tame in May. So the big number is the annual rate that came in at 2.4%. That is a slight acceleration from 2.3% in April, but this was better than expected. month over month, prices were up by just 0.1%. Again, that's better than expected, and that's actually a deceleration from what we saw in April. Now, one reason...
A deceleration. All right, so here I'm going to give you the next thing. Here's your next thing that you can forecast as you're looking at the horses coming around the track, which horse you need to put your bet on. Here's what has to happen. It's basically inevitable right now. In terms of how long it's going to take, not really sure. I'm not sure when the next meeting is, but the Federal Reserve has to lower their rates at this point. They have no choice. Anything else would seem like an automatic manipulation based on political strategies. They're wanting to make Trump look bad. They can't stop what's happening in this economy. This economy is literally, like Donald Trump said, it's going to take off like a rocket ship. The only things that really could stop it, some sort of war or something, some sort of craziness across the country. We get through this weekend. We sail through this weekend in the parade and everything else. We get through without major casualties and craziness going on. You better be ready next week to start forecasting a fantastic summer for you and your family and doing whatever you need to do to get in the game. I'm just telling you. Again, let me put the disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I do this for entertainment purposes only. Yeah, that's what they like you to say, right? But I'm telling you, based upon what I'm looking at and what I'm telling Robin and what I'm telling Ashley, is this thing is about to take off. Every indicator that you look. So there's nothing that is an indicator in regards to the economy that shows it doing anything but rocket ship stuff. So at this point, the Democrats, to counter it, are going to have to continue to lie and then try to roll a hand grenade into the economy just to stop Trump. Nothing else they can do. They are now participants in the Trump economy. They are now participants in the bleacher seats of America. And all they can do is try to drum up unrest and have people running through the street with different kind of flags. I don't care. I really don't care. Damn, I gotta go ahead and cut that video. I don't care. No, I don't care. Focus. And if you're thinking, Barry, you talk too much about money, yeah, I'm sorry. My grandson is out there fishing right now on a boat that Robin decided she wanted to charter, and she's making memories with my grandson. Memories are priceless. Memories for your family should be priceless. If no one's telling you that, let me be the first to tell you. And if you don't want to hear it, then maybe this isn't for you. But I love life. I love everything that life can afford us down here. I love that Ron DeSantis is telling me all the nuts. Not here. Don't bring that craziness here. They tried something in Tampa. They got yelled out. Go away. Nope, not going to happen. You know what's funny? It's like, almost mid-June? Anybody hearing much about the people who, with the funny colors and alphabet, the LGBTQRSSIPPI, those people? No, nothing. They can't really have parades in Los Angeles when the other people are like stopping stuff on the highway. Nope, can't happen. They've destroyed Pride Month. They've ate their own once again. And I'm happy for that.
And why these inflation numbers came in very much better than expected is because we did see a drop in energy prices. In particular, gas prices were low. Now, economists like to look at core inflation because that excludes food and energy, but that also came in better than expected. Digging into some of the categories, we did see that egg prices, they did fall on a month-over-month basis again. So that is
Again, it's continuing to fall. They can't even talk about that anymore. And I know there's some doomsayers in the chat. Ashley told me to start ignoring them. And I will. But I see people like, if the country goes to hell, money doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. Move along. Move along. Yes, things could get crazy, which all that matter means more. And I'm not even running a commercial. I'm just telling you, prepare for that as well. If you are a doomsayer, if you think like things could go crazy, then you better hedge your bet there too. Cover yourself on all angles. You just can't sit there and go, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Huh? Okay. I prefer to be prepared in either way. Many of you probably drive around with a spare tire in your car. Doesn't mean you're going to get a flat. You just have the spare tire there in case you get a flat. I remember when I was in high school, I got a flat tire. My dad said, what are you calling me for? Change the tire. I left the jack in the garage. I had to pull the phone away. Are you an idiot? How did you leave the jack in the garage but put the spare tire back there? Because I wasn't prepared. See, if I was prepared, I would have had the spare tire and the jack. Just to make sure in case something happened. Other than that, you're driving car, you're having a great time, got your buds in the car with you, everybody's fine, everybody's happy, but you got the spare tire just in case. These are my spare tires. So when people say, what if something happens? What if? Well, what ifs are covered as well. If a lightning bolt should strike the house, what do you have? Come on, you can answer it. You have insurance. If you should fall down leaving out the front door and break your leg, what do you have? Health insurance. So you don't walk out the door going, I might fall today. I better not go out there because if I go outside, I might fall, so I'm going to stay in here. That's what people sound like when they say, oh, I can't really look at prosperity because prosperity, what happens if it all falls apart? Well, then you better take care of that too. No patience. No patience for whining. This is all upstart. This is all motivational. This is all inspiration. Do what you got to do. If you don't have the money, start canning stuff. Put it in the garage. Prepare. Be rich with food. Feed your neighbors. But stop flipping whining. This is great.
Good sign.
I want to make this point, which is that the concern at the Federal Reserve was not just that tariff-related prices would go up. It's that it would spread more broadly to other tariff prices, and that the issue of inflation expectations, which you talked about very eloquently this morning with Richard Clarida, would be an issue for the Federal Reserve. Not only did we get a decline in inflation expectations earlier this week from the important New York Fed report, but even if I zero in on just the tariff-related increases, I look elsewhere and I do not see broader impacts on inflation.
So what he's showing you there and what he's telling you right now, what did he say? If I look on the horizon, I don't see he's doing his forecast. He's looking at the track going, yeah, I see what's going on over there. And these things here, these treasury yields, as those go down, interest rates have to do what? You start seeing what's happening. The Federal Reserve is getting its hand forced very, very soon. President Trump knows that. You'll hear him talking about it real soon.
From the tariffs.
The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or as I will call it today, OBBB, the One Big Beautiful Bill will make the 2017 tax cuts permanent. This will provide individuals and businesses with certainty and build economic momentum. The legislation is squarely aimed at boosting the working and middle class and reinvigorating American manufacturing. According to the Council of Economic Advisors, the One Big Beautiful Bill will raise take-home pay between $7,800 and $13,300 for the average family of four. It will increase wages between $6,100 to $11,600 for the average worker, and it will cement no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and tax cuts for seniors. The One Big Beautiful Bill will also incentivize unprecedented investment in U.S. manufacturing. The legislation will provide 100% expensing for new factories, as well as existing factories that expand operations and support Made in America. It will streamline burdensome permitting processes, that often stand in the way of new manufacturing projects. It's time for this country to start building things again, and the OBBB makes this possible. The administration is grateful for the leadership of this committee in shepherding the One Big Beautiful Bill through the House. We are working closely with members of the Senate to get this legislation to the president's desk.
The two words you really have to dig into and begin learning and understanding is two big words. One is called reconciliation and one is called rescission. These are two different ways to get money appropriated in our government. Reconciliation, you only need 51 votes. We should have that. Reconciliation rescission, based upon what they do, may require more. So everyone who was worried about this bill not doing enough weren't looking at what's being proposed for the first rescission round. Those two things they're going to keep happening. You got a reconciliation, you got a rescission. Do you know the difference? Do you understand what's going to happen? Once you start understanding that and understanding, okay, reconciliation, what's going to happen? Where are you going to get this? We're going to help with the border. We're going to get jobs. We're going to have no tips on overtime. No taxes on tips, and those things. No taxes on Social Security. That would have to go into the rescission package. So understand how things are headed, and then you can just sit back and watch the politicians. The Democrats have no way to stop what's coming. The Republicans would have to stop what's coming. Democrats know right now they're standing there screaming, and too many people in America are seeing these people are nothing but obstructionists. And now they got dealt arguably, these two decisions were two of the biggest decisions that just gave them gut punches. Absolute gut punches. Let me go over decision number one. Let me pull this up. All right, decision number one. And this is absolutely monstrous. And there's, again, nothing they can do about it. They went to court level. And the Federal Appeals Court has ruled that the United States, President Trump, can indeed use the tariffs to protect itself against other countries. A great, important win for the U.S. So you can't do that. You don't have the power to just put out tariffs whenever you want to. Yes, I can. So there's that. Now this one is a little bit trickier because you're going to have to envision something. And when I talk to Chris in the interview, he'll help you understand it as well. And that is the military. And what's happened thus far is a little bit of a poke. You see, here's 700 Marines. Here's a couple thousand National Guardsmen. Don't F around. Don't F around, Newsom, and make me have to show you. I wanted him just to go all in. Just show him. Give him the FO part right now. Because after that speech last night, you want to call it a speech, after that speech, just give it to him. Go in with full force and take over California. Well, Barry, he can't do that. The law, well, maybe you weren't following this. This happened yesterday evening at about 6 o'clock. And it's probably one of the biggest rulings in the Trump administration thus far. And I'll tell you why. Breaking, as of last night, a U.S. federal judge has denied Gavin Newsom's request to stop Trump from using the National Guard in Los Angeles. He preferred doing a publicity stunt to try and make Trump look bad rather than help his constituents restore law and order. Newsom is the biggest loser. All the other stuff behind that is hyperbole, but the first paragraph is that the judge says that President Trump has full authority, has every right to bring the military into Los Angeles. But notice what it didn't say. It didn't say, no, it's limited to just 2,000. No, it's limited just to the 700 Marines. Nope. Didn't say that. What happens And I want you to be thinking this into your mind, because right now there's probably some stuff happening in the shadows that we don't know about. That a lot of people's sphincters tightened up real tight. We may even see some questions about it in today's press conference, because if these idiots have any idea what just happened last night, I think Newsom knows. That's why he talked the way he did. So let me explain it to you. In order to change California, we are going to have to rid California of the cartel. See, the cartel actually governs California, not Newsom. Don't be confused there. Newsom does not run California. The cartels run California. They dictate how things are. They're the ones who give the money to the politicians to do some of the crazy ass stuff that they do. They're the ones who cause the violence. They're the ones who moved the Bloods and the Crips out and said, we run stuff here now. How do you think, any way, shape, or form, California is going to change? It cannot change, and I've said this many a times, you cannot vote your way out of what's wrong with California. Not possible. That state is as communist, as Marxist, as violent as they want it to be. And voting isn't going to fix that. There's only one way to fix that, and that's to take it over. And last night, the judge said Trump can use the military. So how far does he have to go? These street protests are just meant to keep you off of what really needs to happen. They need to go into the jails and extract the people who are actually running California from inside the prison. See, prisons are meant to keep the bad people out, but it's also protecting the bad people who run things. It's like having a castle. These people in there run the entire show for the people back in Mexico. This is why the people in Mexico, the president of Mexico, she's like, oh no, we got to do mobilize. We got to do it. They know what's coming. If President Trump were to go into the prison system and said, we're going to put these people in Alcatraz, we're going to put these people in Gitmo, we're going to put them in Sicat, we're going to just stop this. I don't even want to mention the name of the group so I don't get in trouble. You're going to stop there, going to stop the border. The border's been turned off. So now it's only what the rats that are running around in the jails that are controlling the street thugs. So the people who are out there running the signs and doing all crazy stuff, that's not the problem. Those are speed bumps. Those are things that are in the way. We need to get around them and go into where the belly of the beast is. There's no way to vote California straight. California needs a complete lobotomy. We got to excise that out. I'm going to go into more of that when I talk to Chris Moritz about his book. But you can see the inevitability in front of you. The California politicians look like Muppets every time they talk. They make no sense whatsoever. I think you see that at this point. I was pointing that stuff out on X every time they spoke. I'm like, oh, they're doing exactly what I told you they were going to do. Pretend like nothing was happening because there's nothing else they can do. They cannot confront the issue. You got all these newcomers running crazy in your state, doing crazy things, voting even, running stuff. Those people have to go in order to fix California. And everybody knows it. They just don't talk about it. So now that Trump can bring the military in, they just got a wake-up call of epic proportions. You don't want to see the full-on assault that needs to happen to clean California. While we're waiting, let me go ahead and do this real quick here. You know, one thing people don't realize is just how much of your overall health starts in your gut. If you're constantly tired, feeling bloated, breaking out, dealing with brain fog, or struggling to lose weight, it might not be random. A lot of that can actually trace back to your gut health. That's why I've been using Kimchi One from Brightcore Nutrition. It's not your average supplement, it's real fermented kimchi, loaded with over 900 strains of probiotics plus enzymes and antioxidants, all packed into simple daily capsules. Since I started taking it, my digestion's been smoother. I think you know what that means. I've got more energy, I've got fewer cravings, and in fact, so much fewer cravings, I've had to do away with a lot of the snacks I used to keep at arm's length because don't even crave them. And I've even noticed, and maybe you've noticed, clearer skin and better focus, and this isn't just my experience. Clinical studies back it up. Kimchi's been shown to help with metabolism, blood sugar, and even weight management. No mess, no prep, no strong taste, just real results. Kimchi One is a non-GMO, all-natural, dairy-free, gluten-free, and 100% made in the USA by a company that truly believes in wellness and integrity. And right now you can get 25% off with the code BARRY at mybrightcore.com/Barry. Or for an even better deal, which I prefer you do, call Brightcore at 888-418-6738. Did I put the right phone number? Yeah, 888-418-6738 for up to 50% off if you call. You also get free shipping and even a free bottle of vitamin D3 with your order. Take care of your gut and the rest of your health will follow. Again, that number is 888-418-6738. And it's easier to call because since they're the experts on their own product, you can actually talk to people. So it's not just going to a website, you can actually talk to them. All right, thank you. All right, so while we're waiting, she is 7 minutes late. Before I continue with what I have, let me just make sure she just doesn't walk on because she just bolts out there when she comes out. So as you guys know, I've got a number of different feeds to make sure if something goes down, I can go to the other one. So at the beginning of the onset of her speaking, I'll probably take the RSBN feed, and then once it settles, I'll take the actual White House feed, which is cleaner. So in the interim, while we are waiting, let's take some comments here. If they were not fired for even putting water in the fire hydrants, the basic stuff the voters seem to never remember these failures. Nope, they don't. Let's see here. I clicked the like. Don't look at me. I'm innocent. Barry, want to see the damn right. Bring it to California. Yeah, I want to see it. Because not only will it signal something to California, it will also signal it to the other states as well. Let's see, what do we got here? I wonder if I haven't heard, well, haven't been here. Is Maximus here? Maximus, I see somebody saying Maximus, thank you. Let's see here. Nobody. Oh my goodness, some people here. It's funny. I guess good stuff, Barry. Thanks for all you do, and your mods, absolutely. Love you. Thank you very much as well. So she's not here yet, so let me continue. And then when she pops up, I will pop up as well. And it's great to be back, and all the mods are here as well, so that's fun. Let's go. This is an interview that President Trump did with Miranda Devine. I had Miranda on the show a couple weeks ago. Maybe about a month ago. Very, 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 very nice woman. You've probably seen her on Fox News as well. Interesting, he got into the real estate side of things there. He goes, people always wonder, why is somebody selling? Why is somebody buying? It was funny because I'm looking at doing a deal right now, and Ashley has been looking over the information on the deal, and she came out and said, she goes, if the property is worth $1.1 million, why is he selling it to you for $650,000? And I said, people always ask that question. There has to be some motivation for somebody to sell you a property that basically at 70, 25% off, 30% off. Why are they doing that? And see, the person who hasn't been involved in a lot of that, I'll pick this up because, is she coming out yet? Okay, person who hasn't been involved in that, can't understand why anyone would do that. President Trump just talking about Joe Biden or whoever the Democrats were actually running things, people asked the question, why would they bring all these people in? He already knows the answer to that question. Many of you probably know the answer to that question. And it's hard for people to sit back and go, why would they do this? Well, it's easy. If you sit back and analyze what exactly were the motivation, what did they want to do? Well, they wanted a socialist utopia. They wanted to make sure that they had not just enough voters. A lot of people think it's just for the voters, just to see if we can't swing elections. No, it was much more than that. They needed to change ideology. They needed to make sure the impressionable people around the people they brought in were part of the same people that they were able to get to change their mindset. And you're seeing those idiots run around in the street. Lots of them are white liberals. How did a white liberal woman all of a sudden become an advocate for newcomers? How did you get people to believe and to really accept that they are oppressors? That they had this thing called white privilege? Every time you look at that, many of you probably think, what the hell are these people doing? How can you have so much white guilt? Well, it's not by accident. That was part of the plan by bringing all these people in. Get these people to second guess themselves, and because the more you second guess yourself, the more you believed at that point that you were the problem, not me. You white people, you were the problem. We'll take this up on the other side.
What we have seen transpire in Los Angeles, California in recent days is shameful. Left-wing radicals waving foreign flags viciously attacked ICE and Border Patrol agents as well as Los Angeles police officers. These criminals injured police, threw rocks at police cars and officers, burned vehicles, shut down freeways, and lobbed Molotov cocktails, all because the Trump administration was removing violent criminal illegal aliens from the city. These attacks were aimed not just at law enforcement, but at American culture and society itself. Rioters burned American flags, chanted "Death to ICE," and spray-painted anti-American slogans on buildings. But President Trump will never allow mob government is to preserve law and order, and this administration embraces that sacred responsibility. Democrats like Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass shamefully failed to meet their sworn obligations to their citizens. They didn't have the courage to do the right thing and protect law-abiding Californians from rioters. That's why President Trump deployed the National Guard and mobilized Marines to end the chaos and restore law and order. The mob violence is being stomped out. The criminals responsible will be swiftly brought to justice, and the Trump administration's operations to arrest illegal aliens are continuing unabated. When the initial immigration enforcement actions took place on June 6th, Mayor Bass took to social media to say she was deeply angered by what has taken place. Mayor Bass then embarked on one of the most outrageous campaign of lies this country has ever seen from an elected official, blaming President Trump and brave law enforcement officers for the violence. She accused heroic American immigration and customs enforcement officers targeting illegal alien murderers, rapists, and pedophiles of, quote, sowing terror in communities and disrupting basic principles of safety in our city. Around the same time, Governor Newsom claimed that immigration enforcement actions were causing chaos. That's how radical Democrats have become. Their opposition to President Trump has forced them to side with illegal alien criminals in their communities and violent rioters and looters over law enforcement officers who are just doing their jobs. Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom fanned the flames and demonized our brave ICE officers. Instead of defending their city and their state, Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom claimed that in order for the riots and the violence to stop, ICE needed to leave and immigration raids must end. In other words, the position of the Democrat Party is that the federal government is not allowed to enforce our laws and to arrest and deport illegal alien criminals. They're attempting to use a violent mob as a weapon against their own constituents to prevent the enforcement of immigration law. This is deeply un-American and morally reprehensible. President Trump received a clear mandate from voters to reverse the illegal invasion ushered in by Joe Biden's open border and to end the lawlessness represented by Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom's California. President Trump promised to carry out the largest mass deportation campaign in American history, and left-wing riots will not deter him in that effort. Sanctuary cities and states will no longer be allowed to shield illegal criminals from deportation. Just take a look at some of the illegal monsters who were taken off the streets in Los Angeles in recent days. A Vietnamese national, a known gang member with a conviction for second-degree murder. A Mexican national with convictions for child molestation who was armed with a dangerous weapon and had previous arrests for robbery and domestic violence. A Filipino national with convictions of rape, assault, burglary, and theft. A Mexican national convicted of statutory rape, narcotics violations, and hit and run. A Nicaraguan national with convictions for domestic violence and hit and run and a previous arrest for willful cruelty to a child. And an illegal alien from Mexico who was arrested after allegedly throwing a Molotov cocktail at law enforcement officers during the Paramount riots on Saturday. He is now being charged with attempted murder. Law-abiding American citizens do not want these public safety threats living in their communities, no matter what Democrats like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom may claim. And let this be an unequivocal message to left-wing radicals in other parts of the country who are thinking about copycatting the violence in an effort to stop this administration's mass deportation efforts. You will not succeed. Any lawlessness will only strengthen this president's resolve to defend the majority of Americans who want to live their lives peacefully, free from the fear of violent criminal illegal aliens. As President Trump said, order will be maintained and illegal aliens will be expelled from our country. In economic news, the latest Consumer Price Index inflation report came in today below expectations again. Since President Trump took office, inflation has come in below economics expectations every single month. Core inflation held steady and remains at the lowest level since March of 2021. Wage growth remains strong. The average private sector worker is on track to see their real earnings increase by around $1,200 adjusted for inflation. And prices continue to fall for everyday Americans. Energy prices fell from April to May. Gasoline has fallen each month since President Trump took office, down 12% over the past year. And prices for meat, poultry, eggs, and fish are all down from April to May as well. Under President Trump's strong leadership, America is beating Joe Biden's record high inflation crisis. And once the One Big Beautiful Bill passes, our economy will boom like never before. This bill is the largest tax cut for middle-class Americans in history. The One Big Beautiful Bill gives a 15% tax cut to working Americans and families will see increased take-home pay of $10,000 per year. The One Big Beautiful Bill expands the child tax credit to $2,500 for more than 40 million American families with children. And the One Big Beautiful Bill cuts taxes for overtime workers, saving them nearly $2,000 per year, and ends taxes on tips, saving tipped workers nearly $2,000 per year as well. All of these provisions are broadly popular with an overwhelming support from the American people. We need Republicans in Congress to finish the job and send the One Big Beautiful Bill back to President Trump's desk for his signature as soon as possible. With that, we'll get to questions. I'm sure you have many of them today. Here in our new media seat is Elizabeth Mitchell, the White House correspondent for the Daily Signal, who's not afforded a seat in this room, but today she is. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I have two questions, if that's okay. First, a few Republicans on Capitol Hill are suggesting that President Trump scale back deportations, even as ICE is reportedly gearing up for raids in 5 more Democrat-led areas. Would anything dissuade President Trump, and would he consider sending in Marines if anti-ICE violence occurs in these cities?
Well, I think I may have just answered both of your questions with my opening monologue. The Trump administration is going to continue the mass deportation effort that the president promised the American public. Many of you were at those rallies in cities and communities across the country when the president spoke about his commitment to removing violent illegal criminals and anyone who has broken our nation's immigration laws from American communities. And God bless our ICE and Border Patrol who are working hard on that effort. This administration is going to continue that. And it's part of the reason we do need the One Big Beautiful Bill to pass as well, may I add, because the bill provides funding to hire more ICE agents and Border Patrol agents, more personnel on the ground to conduct this important public safety work.
Thank you. And on another topic, President Trump has indicated that aides to former President Biden who used the auto pen to sign major orders and pardons should be investigated for potential crimes. Does he think that Biden allowing or at least being negligently unaware of this activity was an impeachable offense?
I haven't heard the president address whether it's an impeachable offense, but it could perhaps be a criminal offense, especially on behalf of staffers who may have been utilizing the president's signature without his authority or consent. I understand that Republicans on the Hill are moving in the right direction to call attention to this and to bring in some former White House staffers who clearly knew more than they ever shared and never addressed with the American public. And so we look forward to seeing where this investigation continues, and I know the Department of Justice is also looking into the matter as well. Alex, good to see you today.
Good to see you, Caroline. Thank you. You mentioned foreign flags being flown during these protests. There are protest activities being organized for this weekend. Part of it are Democrats saying they want to reclaim the American flag. It's also being titled No King's Day. Does the president see himself as a king, and does the White House expect to see American flags being flown during these protests this weekend?
The president views himself as the president of the United States of America. This is a constitutional republic, and we want to see all of our citizens be proud of the country in which they are given the privilege and the blessing to live. And I think those images of foreign flags being waved with by illegal criminals and by violent rioters in the face of cars blowing up and of flames in the city. I have photos of that here to show you. With this violence and destruction that occurred is an image that Governor Gavin Newsom owns. This is his city, and President Trump saw these images, and he said that is not going to be accepted or tolerated, and hence why he deployed the National Guard and United States Marines who have helped to quell that violence.
If I can ask another.
Sure.
If the president does end up deploying any National Guard members, perhaps Marines, to blue states, would he be in contact with the governors prior to this? Would it be necessary?
Well, President Trump was in contact with Governor Gavin Newsom despite some of the claims he's made in the last couple of days. The president called the governor on Friday evening and told him to let law enforcement in California do their jobs. And the Los Angeles Police Department, by the way, are fantastic people. They are trying to do the work that they've so bravely signed up to do to enforce the law, but they have been kneecapped by incompetent Democrat policies and Democrat politicians who do not allow their local law enforcement to correspond and coordinate with federal immigration authorities. And so President gave Gavin Newsom a warning and said, get it together. 24 hours later, we saw more images like this. We heard about Border Patrol agents who were being the target of rocks. These illegal criminals were throwing rocks at our Border Patrol and ICE agents, and so the president made the decision to federalize California's National Guard. Stephanie.
Thank you. Two questions on the China trade deal, if I may. First, will the president formally sign the trade deal, and if so, when? Secretary Lutnick sort of alluded to the fact that it might be in a couple of days, but I'm curious if there's anything more specific to read out.
Sure. I do have more specifics for you. I spoke to the president about this. He spoke to his trade team, who did a fantastic job negotiating this on behalf of the United States and meeting with their Chinese counterparts. The president is talking to them about the details of it now. But what the president heard, he liked. China has agreed to open their markets to the United States separately of this deal. And when it comes to this deal, we're going back to the terms that were agreed upon in Geneva for the release of some of those critical minerals and the magnets from China to the United States. And we have agreed to fully comply with the Geneva Agreement as well. So the president is reviewing the details of that with his trade team now, and you'll hear more from him, I'm sure.
And then the second question, on tariffs, Secretary Lutnick suggested that the tariffs would remain unchanged with China. I'm wondering if there's any room for them to negotiate even lower, or if this is the floor.
I won't get ahead of any further negotiations. We're in a great place right now, and I would add that this is the result of a lot of hard work from the president and his team, and the president has a good and respectful relationship with President Xi, and as you know, they had a direct conversation which led to this success that the president announced on Truth Social this morning. JJ.
On North Korea, has the president tried to resume dialogue with Kim Jong-un? There's some reporting that the president sent a letter and tried to give it to Kim Jong-un through some North Korean diplomats through the UN, and they declined to take it and send it to Kim Jong-un?
The president remains receptive to correspondence with Kim Jong-un, and he'd like to see the progress that was made at that summit in Singapore, which I know you covered in 2018 during his first term. As for specific correspondence, I'll leave that to the president to answer. Sure.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thanks. Back to the trade deal negotiations with China. Jimmy Lai, as you know, is a pro-democracy advocate, Catholic, sitting in solitary confinement in Hong Kong as we speak. His family believes he may be close to death. Did his name come up, Jimmy Lai's name come up in these negotiations with China?
Not to my knowledge. I understand the negotiations were very much focused on our trade and economic relationship with China.
Does the president believe he can free Jimmy Lai from prison?
I'll check with the president. It's certainly an important issue, and I'll get back to you.
Thanks, Caroline. The president said yesterday that paid insurrectionists were behind or involved in the protests in Los Angeles. Does the White House have any more details about who they believe is paying these protesters?
The president spoke about this last night when he returned from Fort Bragg, because frankly the president has a lot of common sense. And if you look at some of the imagery that we have received from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE and law enforcement who are on the ground, you will see boxes and boxes of very professionalized masks and rioting equipment being dropped off for these protesters. So it's a good question the president is raising, and one we are looking into, about who is funding these insurrectionists and these rioters and these protesters and these illegal criminals. And I have updates for you on the numbers, by the way. Since June 6th, there have been 330 illegal aliens that have been arrested as part of these riots in Los Angeles. 113 of those illegal aliens had prior criminal convictions. And overall, and this includes arrests of American citizens, there's been 157 people arrested for assault and obstruction-related charges, including the attempted murder of a police officer with a Molotov cocktail. So who is funding these illegal aliens who are coming in with this very professional riot gear? It's a question everyone in this room who cares about truth should be asking. And we encourage your help in trying to get to the bottom of that question. Indira.
Thank you, Caroline. About Elon Musk, he issued an apology this morning. Has the president accepted the apology, or does he think it's too little too late?
The president acknowledged the statement that Elon put out this morning, and he is appreciative of it, and we are continuing to focus on the business of the American people.
And has the administration started a review of Musk's government contracts, something that the president said he's considering?
What do you mean by that?
Has the administration started a review of the contracts that Musk and his companies currently have?
No efforts have been made on that front as far as I'm aware.
And just one more, if I may, on just everything sort of we've seen so far with the president's response to the LA protests. There is criticism that seems to suggest that the president responded the way he did because it was a deliberate, calculated attempt to sort of shift focus away from his feud with Musk. How would you respond to that?
Shut up.
Yeah, the president responded to the LA riots, condemning the violence to
from Musk.
It's an incredibly disingenuous attack. The president saw images of Border Patrol and ICE agents being hailed with rocks and Molotov cocktails. He saw vehicles being burned to the ground with illegal aliens flying foreign flags, and that's what prompted the president to have this response that has clearly worked, because last night in Los Angeles, you didn't see many of those images. And I would add the governor and the mayor need to actually do more. I know Gavin Newsom had a big address to the nation last night. I guess he thought that's what it was for maybe his future political ambitions, but he spoke a lot of words. We haven't seen action. California has been a mess for years because of the incompetence of Gavin Newsom, so the president was responding to that only. Caitlin.
Caroline, two questions for you.
Sure.
Over the weekend, Secretary Noem sent a memo to the Pentagon asking Secretary Hegseth to have and direct the military that's on the ground in LA to arrest and detain what she said were lawbreakers. Is the president okay with that? And under what authority would the members of the military be able to arrest people inside the United States?
I can't speak for a letter that came from the Department of Homeland Security. I can't speak for the president and what's currently happening on the ground now. And as you know, the president federalized the National Guard under U.S. Code 10, which he has the authority to do. And our United States Marines and the National Guardsmen and women who are on the ground right now are helping to create a peaceful environment for ICE and Border Patrol, who were being, again, hailed with rocks, who were being violently and viciously attacked. They needed reinforcements, and so our United States Marines who are on the ground are providing those reinforcements to ensure the environment is peaceful so that these raids and deportations can continue.
But he realizes they can't actually arrest people unless he invokes the Insurrection Act, which, I mean, seemingly was not something that was in Secretary Noem's
memo, a clear distinction she did not make there.
Again, you're trying to conflate a letter that was sent to the Department of Homeland Security to the president's legal authority. The president understands the legal authority that he invoked, and that's the current situation right now.
When it comes to federalizing the National Guard, what is the specific criteria that the president is using for when he's deciding to do that, and in which states?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. He wants to see an end to the chaos and the violence. He doesn't want to see law enforcement officers being attacked. He wants to see peace. He wants law-abiding Californians to be able to bring their kids to school, to be able to go to work without seeing this violence in the streets. That's what the president's hoping for, and that's why he's taken this action. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Two questions on two separate topics. One has to do with the military parade taking place here in Washington this weekend. There's a lot of security around the White House complex, around the Capitol complex, even along the tidal basin. Is that just proactive? Are you expecting anything in particular in terms of unrest like we've seen in Los Angeles?
These are proactive security measures to protect those marching in the parade, many of whom will be veterans and our brave men and women in uniform and Gold Star families. There's going to be military families from around the country who are flying into this parade. And of course, it's to protect the spectators who will be enjoying this incredibly patriotic show on Saturday. And I hope you all join us there.
And then secondly, Secretary Pete Hegseth testified on the Senate side of the Capitol today.
Yes.
And he was asked about America's, the administration's view of Vladimir Putin's intentions. And specifically, it was asked whether or not his intentions go beyond, his territorial ambitions go beyond Ukraine. When that question was posed to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane replied that he does believe that his territorial ambitions go beyond Ukraine, but Secretary Hegseth says it's not clear at this point. How does the president view this issue?
The president has spoken on this. He said, as he calls it, he believes Ukraine was always the apple of Putin's eye. And he made it very clear to Putin in his first term not to invade Ukraine. Putin didn't invade Ukraine because of President Trump's peace through strength foreign policy agenda and the effective deterrence policies that he implemented in the first term. Unfortunately, because of the weakness and incompetence of the previous administration, Vladimir Putin made the decision to invade Ukraine. And now we have this brutal war, which the president is working very hard to end. Jasmine.
Thanks so much, Caroline. The president warned that any protests on Saturday would be met with force. Can you clarify what kind of protest President Trump does support or find acceptable?
The president absolutely supports peaceful protests. He supports the First Amendment. He supports the right of Americans to make their voices heard. He does not support violence of any kind. He does not support assaulting law enforcement officers who are simply trying to do their job. It's very clear for the president what he supports and what he does not. Unfortunately for Democrats, that line has not been made clear, and they've allowed this unrest and this violence to continue, and the president has had to step in.
So if there were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade, President Trump would allow that?
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question. Raquel.
Thank you so much, Caroline.
Raquel, and then I can go to you first.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I have two questions. One about Israel. Yesterday, the U.S. ambassador to Israel said the U.S. no longer is pursuing the goal of an independent Palestinian state. Can you confirm that the president is no longer supporting a two-state solution? And is President Trump considering diplomatic action against countries who takes action against Israel during next week UN conference?
Right now, the president views the situation in Israel and Gaza as deeply unfortunate and needing to end. And the president is realistic about the current state of affairs in this region of the world. And that's why the president has said the number one focus and priority of the administration is to release all of the hostages from Gaza and to end this conflict as soon as possible. The administration is still pushing very hard for the release of all the hostages. And as for what happens next, clearly Gaza is an uninhabitable place. It needs to be rebuilt with the help of our Arab partners, and the president wants to see that happen as well. Take a couple
more. One on the G7 engagement. President Trump is traveling there on Sunday. Other presidents beyond the G7 leaders are also going. President Lula from Brazil, President Sheinbaum from Mexico, and President Zelensky from Ukraine are also going. Do you have confirmation if President Trump is meeting any other leaders on the sideline of the G7?
Yes.
to know about the engagement in ULA?
I can confirm there will be quite a few bilateral meetings between the president and other foreign leaders. The White House is still working very hard to finalize that schedule, and we will provide that for you as soon as we have it.
Great.
Thanks, Karoline. Just back to the China trade deal, can you talk about the status of the export controls that the U.S. imposed? Are those no longer being imposed?
We are fully complying with the Geneva Agreement. Go ahead. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. One foreign question for you and one domestic. The foreign, the president, of course, has said he would lift sanctions on Syria. Is there an executive order coming along soon to go do that? And is the president planning to try to get involved in any kind of a peace agreement between Israel and Syria that would disengage those two?
To the best of my knowledge, the Treasury Department took action after the president made that announcement in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. And then on the domestic side, you were just asked about the First Amendment rights issues. In the president's comments yesterday, though, he just said protesters would be strongly dealt with. In your list before, you referred to insurrectionists, rioters, and protesters together. Obviously, they're quite different from your earlier answer. I'm struck by the fact that the president has not at any point said the most important thing here is to protect the First Amendment rights of peaceful protesters. So I'm wondering, where in his hierarchy of interests does he place that? Is the First Amendment protection the most important? Is stopping violence most important? Why is he not out saying all peaceful protesters will be protected?
I think two things can be important at the same time. And the president, as I just answered, supports the right of Americans to peacefully protest. He supports the First Amendment. But that is not the majority of the behavior that we have seen taking place in Los Angeles. We have seen mobs of violent rioters and agitators assaulting law enforcement officers, assaulting our federal immigration authorities. And we have seen, as I said, this goes back to what this administration is trying to do and accomplish, and that's enforcing law and order in our nation's communities. And it's removing public safety threats from communities in Los Angeles.
You're saying the majority have not been peaceful, the majority have been violent.
I just read for you the arrest numbers. We've arrested nearly 400 illegal aliens alone, just illegal aliens who have been arrested in these riots since June 6th, since they began.
Thousands of people on the streets.
Yeah, and we've had hundreds of people who have assaulted law enforcement officers. Are you saying that that's that's appropriate behavior?
No,
are you
no,
saying
I'm not
that
saying
the
that at all.
president
I'm
should
just
take
trying to
action?
figure out.
The Democrat governor and the Democrat mayor of Los Angeles have failed their citizens. And the majority of Americans, the majority of Californians do not want to see law enforcement officers being assaulted in the streets. And thankfully, the president took action and stepped in to protect our federal law enforcement agents, to protect federal buildings, to protect the federal mission of deporting illegal criminals off of our streets. And that mission will continue every day as far as we're concerned. Thank you, guys.
She ain't playing. I mean, that wasn't that long, was it? I mean, wow. You would think with everything that's going on that she would have spoke for a little bit longer than that, but I think she's pretty much had it with these nuts. As you can imagine, the stupidity. You think that President Trump is going to let people do peaceful protest at the parade? You're stupid. See, the problem that they're having is that the media can't define a peaceful protest. To them, if they're out there spitting at cops and if they're, doing all the craziness and everything, to them that's a peaceful protest. How do you define a peaceful protest? It's sort of like when people say, how do you define porn? And the definition for a long time with porn was, I'll know it when I see it. Well, me personally, when I'm looking at these people protest, I just remember seeing picket lines with unions, and they just walked in a circle and they carried a sign. They may have chanted, but they don't get in the street. You have to have a permit to do that. In fact, there are really good lines of engagement, if you would say, in terms of a picket line. You have to keep moving. You can't stop. You have to just keep going. That's been the rule. Otherwise, you're stopped, and now you're, breaking a law. These people do whatever they want. President Trump already said you can't wear masks. They're continuing to wear masks. So it doesn't seem like anyone wants to define what a peaceful protest is. That's the problem. To them, shooting off firecrackers and burning the flag is a peaceful protest. Well, I'm sure there are other people, even though burning the flag is allowed, don't consider that a peaceful protest. Screaming at people, air horns, all this kind of stuff. Everything that they're doing, what is a peaceful protest? Maybe the first thing with protesting is understanding why you're out there. I'm pretty sure throwing bricks, not a peaceful protest. I'm pretty sure lighting a car on fire, not a peaceful protest. That's the problem we're having right now. Nobody wants to define what exactly a peaceful protest is. A couple things of note that occurred while you guys were talking, or while she was talking, is President Trump, I put it in the red scroll there, but President Trump had talked about the CPI number. CPI is the Consumer Price Index, and the Consumer Price Index came out and says, great numbers, just out. Fed should lower by 1 full point. Would pay much less interest on debt coming due. So important. Except for the fact, they don't want they don't want you to pay less in debt. It kind of defeats the purpose. We want more debt because we make more money, higher interest. Imagine having an adjustable rate mortgage forever. See, that's another thing I have a problem with. Many of you who have owned homes, or maybe you own your own home right now, why do we have an adjustable rate mortgage on a national debt? Why isn't it fixed all the time? Whatever. Never mind. Don't get me started on telling me how we owe the debt. That's a whole different conversation. Why do we have an adjustable rate mortgage? Why does it go up and down? If I'm borrowing money from somebody, I don't borrow money based upon an adjustable rate. It's like, what am I paying you? Oh, is it 6%, 5%, 4%? Whatever it is, I know what it will always be. How does our number just go up and down anytime it wants? See, there's so many things economically I have questions with, and nobody seems to answer. Again, who do we owe it to? When did we take it out? How did the number balloon to the way it is? Did we miss payment? I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me. So, whatever. Just doesn't make sense when you see these things. It's absolutely crazy. So that came out. So the other thing that came out, and this is absolutely huge, automaker GM will now plan to invest $4 billion in the United States to move additional production out of Mexico. This will result in the reopening of an assembly plant in Detroit, Michigan. How many things do you have to see? It's so funny that this came out. That came out at 10 o'clock this morning, 3 hours ago. And the media doesn't talk about it. Nobody brought up the inflation? Nope. Anybody talking about the CPI, Consumer Price Index? Nope. Anybody talking about GM building a $4 billion plant, moving it from Mexico? Nope. See, everything you're seeing in the media is specifically what I said last week. Their job isn't to promote America. Their job is to be a smokescreen so that it never happened. You see, when you see this post and you wonder how many people right now know that $4 billion plant or investment is coming to Detroit, Blue City, because of President Trump. How many people know that right now? Man, not talking about it in the media. Nope. 24/7 riots, 24/7. Can we talk about the stuff that really matters to people? Did you see what happened today with the job numbers and this and that and everything? Are you watching those things? Nope. Let's just talk about, the illegals. Do you see what's going on over here? Nope. We don't see it. We don't pay any attention to that. How does he have the right to go ahead and use the military? Under what authority does the military have to arrest people? Are you kidding me? Does she not understand? See, what they're trying to do is force him to use the Insurrection Act. He doesn't have to. The judge already came out and said, nope, we don't need that. We can just go with what we're going, and I can just keep putting people out there. Doesn't really matter. So the CPI, it just goes. They don't want to publicize what's really happening. Oh, that was Leo. They don't want to publicize what's really happening well in America. And that's up to you. I keep telling you, you got to talk about it. You got to. We're going to go back to the video here. You got to shed. You got to shed the white privilege, the white guilt. Don't let people talk you into that. I'm not black guilt. You shouldn't be white guilt. That is the biggest mind F I've heard in years. How they can convict these people and convince them to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm white. Oh my God, I'm white. Oh, you've lived such a horrible life." Well. Sell me your house real cheap. Yeah, that would work. Did you notice that, I don't know, maybe the third day, whatever it was, somebody bought a whole bunch of American flags because they realized they were losing the optics. Because we all sat back and, well, you're rioting, waving the Mexican flag because you don't want people to go to Mexico. And people were talking about it on X and go, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This place is so great, but we don't want you to go back there where you belong. So here's the next big fight, and it's coming. Just want to warn you on this. Excuse me. When they start penalizing them on remittances, that's when hell's really going to break loose. Even more so. Let me just tell you, these arrests mean nothing. Less than nothing. Why do they mean nothing, Barry? Well, because one of the reasons they didn't want the National Guard and they didn't want the Marines there, and why Karoline Collins asked about arrest, there's a reasoning behind it that nobody explains to you. The reason why that's such a big deal is if the local police arrest these people, they're going to get out in probably 2 hours and be right back on the street, and nothing is going to happen to them. It is a revolving door. Take your fingerprints, picture, yeah, go ahead and get out of here. And they go right back in, and they all know this. However, you get arrested by the feds, the Marines, National Guard, who are working under the auspices of the federal government, that's a different animal altogether. Now you're in a federal law enforcement custody. And no, you're not going to get the revolving door. They can hold you as long as they basically want to. Because the jurisdiction that they're arresting you on isn't for, messing up as a rioter or resisting the arrest. That's wholly different, completely different. And that's one of the reasons why Karoline Collins, that was her question. Under what jurisdiction can you arrest these people? How can you arrest them? And how are you going to detain them? She's looking out for these nut jobs. She's understanding right now, those people, if they get arrested by the military, they're screwed. It's not just a revolving door. So let me go back to the remittances. So if you're not familiar with a remittance is, and those of us who lived in South Florida, you know exactly when you hear it. Or if you want to drive by, I don't know, a check cashing store at about Friday at about 5:30, and you see the line out the door of all kinds of immigrants, and it's packed. You're like, wait a second. All these people in here getting ready to cash checks, none of them have banks? Nope. And then what happens is they all cash their checks or whatever, and then they send the money back to Mexico, to the family or whoever's living there, or to Haiti, or to fill in the blank country. You'll never know this. Nobody's going to tell you. You've probably never seen it. You don't drive in the neighborhoods where the check cashing stores are. Do it Friday. Get a couple of friends in the car and go, what's this Barry guy talking about? Remittances. Drive by a check cashing store in the hood on a Friday afternoon about 5:30. And like, damn, are the Stones playing? What the hell's going on? Well, they're sending the money they grabbed from America back over there. That funds the Mexican government. these countries that I've been telling you that you have to start being suspect and going, are we really just funding all these other countries? Let them have their own flags, but they don't really do anything. I mean, Mexico, they've got commerce, but how much of that money are they taking as a VIG when it hits the Mexican banks or whatever? What percentage of that cash that we're sending over there ends up in the Mexican government? That's another thing they won't talk about. You can ask Grok. Hey, Grok, let's ask Grok. What is the weekly remittance from? Let me do that. Let me put it on the screen and let's see if Grok can answer this for us. Because many of you probably have never heard this before. And you're like, what the heck is Barry talking? Ooh. The grandson, big mountain of a kid that he is. By the way, he's 6'3", 240 pounds. All right, so hold on. Let me shut the door because the dogs are running around with him. Be right back in 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Okay, so that was a short one. So let's go ahead and see what the remittances are to Mexico. Let me ask a simple question. How much are remittances to Mexico from America weekly? Boom. Give me an answer. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my God! To estimate weekly remittances from the United States to Mexico, we can use the most recent annual data and break it down. According to Mexico's central bank, remittances to Mexico in 2024 were almost $65 billion. With 96.6% originating from the United States. Assuming a 52-week year, the weekly remittances from the United States to Mexico can be calculated as 63 million divided by 52 weeks, $1.2 billion per week. Therefore, remittances from the United States to Mexico average approximately $1.2 billion per week. Billion. Go ahead, raise your hand if you never knew that. I mean, never mind. I didn't know it was 1.2 billion. Grok just told me. But did you know that it was a large number that these people were sending back to the Mexican economy? It leaves here. That's $1.2 billion per week out of our economy, and it goes shifting down to Mexico. Gone. So when all these people say, oh, they're contributing to the economy, they're sending $1.2 billion down to Mexico. What would the local economies across the country be like if $1.2 billion stayed in America? I'm going to let you think on that. Chew on that for a second. Did I shock some people here? Not surprised. Never knew. Nope, that's another thing nobody talks about. Nobody talks about when these people are using Western Union and MoneyGram and everything and sending money down to wherever. Cash. Because MoneyGram's not taking a check. So somehow cash money that has been obtained somehow in America, whether it's under the table, whether they walk into a bank and or check cashing store and check the cash the check that the business owner gave to somebody, whatever, however it's done, $1.2 billion a year is going to Mexico. I knew it. I see it at Walmart every Friday. Yeah, I knew it was a big thing, but not that big of a thing. Let's see here. How much are drugs part of that? Really, that's true. We need to talk about this and not hush this up to be the American hardworking people. No, they're never going to talk about it. These are the things nobody wants you to know. This is part of the seediness of and I'm talking both parties. The Republican politicians know this. It's not a secret in Washington. They just don't say anything. Because, and here's another thing, when that money gets out of America, $1.2 billion a week, and lands in some Mexican account somewhere, don't know who holds these accounts, someone's going to, MoneyGram or wherever, check cashing store in Mexico, and they're signing for it, and they're getting cash. How many of those people getting these remittances, or a percentage of these remittances, are the actual people who were supposedly it's going to? Yeah, you didn't think about that, did you? How many of that $1.2 billion a week ends up in some cartel's pocketbook? No way to know. It's just easy. How much of that money ends up in an American politician's pocketbook? No way to know. Drops in there into some bank over there, or somebody shows up with an assumed name, or maybe it's in Mexico, you don't even need the assumed name. You just walk up, yeah, my name's Pedro Ramirez. Yeah, give me my $1,000. You have no idea. And so that money is being pilfered from our economy. I mean, yes, some of these people work very hard, but for the most part, we have no idea who's walking up to the check cashing store in your local neighborhood and saying, send this to somebody over here. No idea. None. These are the kind of problems that you think would be problematic in California. We're talking so much money. So let that sink in a little bit, because it's absolutely crazy. Let me just check as SV has sent me anything else. All right, so let's go on with this video.
I'm going to think if you burn an American flag, because they were burning a lot of flags in Los Angeles, I think you go to jail for 1 year.
Start off on the fact that immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to her.
Now understand what he just said, because he talks really fast. Immigrant voters, not whites, not blacks, immigrants have all said, no, we want Donald Trump. And I'm going to talk to Chris Moritz about that and see if he found out that information in his book, because one of the things, again, I have said, if you know any Mexicans or people of that descent or from different countries, they may be coming here in a manner they're not supposed to come here. But they are not aligning, for the most part, with Democrat ideology. Most of them have households, familial households. They don't have the same problem that we in the black community have. They're not killing 60% of their kids. A lot of them are Catholic. A lot of them don't like baby removal. A lot of them definitely don't like, that Pride Month stuff. So when you start taking into account all the stuff they don't like, they're like, well, we like what Trump's saying if we can figure out a way to stay here. And that's where a big problem is for the Democrats, is because they have to keep bringing more and more here, because the more you're here, the longer you're here. Even if you're a newcomer, you say, I like to keep my money. I don't want to just keep giving it to the government. I want to live in a safe neighborhood too. I don't like these people dressing up and playing in the sport and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to give up 150 days a year to pride stuff. No, none of it, which is why it's so important that they've co-opted the papacy. You got to whack the last two popes out there. Because the Pope knows these people are Catholics, and these people are Catholics, like, oh, we should be welcoming, blah, 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 we should be doing, huh? No. The ones that truly came here for a better life, the Democrats don't want. That's why they've even had to keep replacing them as well.
More in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were in fact immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
So that's on that issue. How about how they feel about kind of traditionally, historically about Donald Trump?
Yeah, so, you see this shift and you go, what is going on underneath the hood? Well, take a look, Donald Trump. You remember when he first ran back in 2016, immigrant voters were one of his weakest spots. But look at this, Trump's vote share in presidential elections among, again, immigrant citizens, those who are registered to vote. Look at this. In 2016, he got 36% of the vote. You go to 2020, 39% of the vote. Look at this, in 2024, all the way up to 47% of the vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely losing that vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely winning that vote. Again, there is no block of voters that shifted more to the right from 2020 to 2024 than immigrant voters, and Donald Trump, at least in some surveys, actually won that vote. On average, it's about equal. So there may be all this stuff, right, about undocumented immigrants and Trump being harsh on them, but immigrant voters themselves have increasingly liked Donald Trump and have increasingly moved to the right on immigration into the Republican camp.
Well, then on that, what you're getting at, how immigrant citizens, voters, feel about people in the country illegally.
Yeah, and this is where it all kind of comes together, Kate Baldwin. Look at this. The net favorable rating, immigrants who are here illegally, among immigrant citizens, again, those registered to vote. In 2020, look at this, plus 23 points on the net favorable rating. But look at where we were in 2024, minus 6 points, underwater. So immigrant citizens have become increasingly unfavorable in their views of those immigrants who are here illegally. So I think it's so important when we...
You got to let that sink in. People who have come here legally don't like the people who came here illegally. It actually makes a lot of sense. It's also math. And that math, I told you, that was why I decided to basically dedicate this channel to Trump, because I knew, and those of you who are watching a long time ago, I knew he was going to win, because the mathematics, I felt like some sort of like idiot savant. I'm like, they can't fix this. He's got immigrants, he's got Hispanics, he's got blacks. Didn't have to win those margins, but if you go back and historically say, what was the margin of victory in 2020? What was the margin of victory in 16? And when you look at those margins of victory and say, how much of the black vote did the Democrats have to get to have any sort of margin? And I was looking back and going, they needed 90%, 92, 94%. And I'm like, they're not getting anywhere close to 90% anymore. So if President Trump was able to knock it down to 84, there's no way for them to win. If the margin of victory was only 4 and 4 and 5 or 5, and all of a sudden you're losing 8 right off the top from one of your demographics, and you're losing 6 and 7 off the other, there's no mathematical way for them to win. So right now, what you need to understand is mathematically the Democrats can never win another national election. I firmly believe that. The only way they can win, and they know it as well, is to have as many newcomers vote as possible and hope that those newcomers vote for them. They do not have the numbers. And then, crazy white liberal women.
Talking about this debate from a political angle to separate those out who are undocumented immigrants versus those who are here legally and those who are citizens and those who are voters, because that group of voters has felt increasingly distant from those immigrants who are here legally. And so again, when we're talking about this, at least from a political angle, this is why Donald Trump feels so comfortable, because in fact, amongst the group that you would think that would be most opposed to this, in fact, they become increasingly favorable, not just towards Donald Trump, but towards a Republican point of view on immigration and becoming distant from those immigrants who are here illegally.
Yeah, an important baseline to consider as this plays out.
Yes, we'll see where we are in a few weeks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Harry.
How do you... So President Trump, as he's being interviewed by Miranda, he knows this as well, and that's what he was talking about. And so, again, as people interview him, listen to what he says, because he's telling you the indicators that you can focus on, in addition to some of the personal stuff that Miranda does a perfect job with this interview, by the way.
The nice part is...
Let me just jump in, because some people would see this and go, dude, you failed bankruptcy, you've had to file bankruptcies, your marriages have failed, you're out there doing whatever with strippers and porn stars. Everything's not all good. It's not all good for any of us. There aren't many people I've met who are successful who didn't go through a bunch of crap as well. Nobody usually hits a home run at their first time at bat in business. And you're lucky if you get into the Hall of Fame in sports and baseball. You're only successful 30% of the time. If you're a 300 hitter in baseball for a career, you're going into the Hall of Fame. 300 means 30%. 30% of the time, you're able to get a hit. That means you're fantastic. President Trump, when people look at his body of work, not this by itself or that by itself, what he's talking about is, yeah, I've been successful. Successful meaning I have more ups than I had downs. I had more wins than I had losses. And I mitigate my losses, I amplify my wins. My wins were so big that my losses didn't hurt as bad. And so I just wanted to clear that up. Perfect athlete mentality. That's something I've been talking to my grandson while he's been here, is it just becomes second nature. Like the question she asked, do you think this? No, I just do it. I'm good. And I know I'm good. And a lot of the skills that I have transfer. And if they don't transfer, then things don't work out. But I need to go back to my basis. My foundation tells me I will be successful. Don't step outside of your foundation, because that's when you can get yourself in trouble. And so sometimes successful people look at things and go, yeah, I'd like to try that. Oh, I don't know anything about that. Let me just come back to my area of expertise. Building ballrooms, building houses, building skyscrapers. That's what I do well. I should have been in the casino business. That was stupid. And so you learn basically that instinct that you have isn't taught. You know full well. That's why sometimes when I say people in here and they're like, oh, woe is me, I'm like, I can't help you. I cannot help change someone's ideology, their focus, their perspective on life. If you're a woe is me type person, you're going to get woe is me type results. I'm just not wired that way. I'm wired, and again, with the grandson here, we're out there. There were 300 kids at this camp yesterday at FAU, Florida Atlantic University. And it was 101 feels like temperature. Robin calls me and she goes, how's he doing? I'm like, he's out there, he's toughing it out. And she's like, do you think he'll quit? And I held the phone like, quit? There is no quit. No. He's my grandson. He ain't gonna quit. There is no quit. When you're a star athlete, when you've been given that mantle where you walk into someplace and people see who you are, there is no quit. You would rather just pass out on the field rather than quit. You'll do anything so you don't quit. And I'm so happy at 16 years old, he already has that mindset. What do I need to do to get better? I'm just going to keep doing it. And like today, when he went out there yesterday, he's from North Carolina, and some of these gazelles down here in South Florida, speed was a little bit higher. Like, oh, okay, this is a whole different ball game here. This is different than North Carolina. I got to raise my game. And so that's what Donald Trump is trying to impart on people. And what I've been trying to impart upon you is you can't, well, I guess you can be a woe is me type person, but you're going to get woe is me type results. And President Trump just said it. I don't have to think about it. I already know. And that's one of the reasons why the Democrats are having such a problem with this guy, is because, what's your opinion? Okay, what's your opinion? We're going to do this. And he goes with what he feels. Not because, it might not do well in some poll. He already knows where he wants to see things go.
To get it, remember where they said Trump was right about everything? On the hat. It's a very big set. Trump was, and if you look at the wars and all the different things, Elon agrees with it, okay? He still agrees with it. Trump was right about everything. A lot of it's common sense.
Yeah.
And it's not anything, it's a conviction I have, it's a feeling I have. But a lot of things, a lot of life is common sense, when you say it.
Your older brother, I guess.
You need to make that a t-shirt. Life is common sense. Very simple. If you follow that, you're going to be up more than you are down. No matter what you do. Common sense. Absolutely. That's why when the whole PP tape thing came out, they didn't know the man. They knew the politician. They thought that, I'm like, I don't roll like that. I've never had a drink of alcohol. I salute that. Because I went to college. He went to college. How did you never have a drink of alcohol? Talk about having intestinal fortitude and strength. You'd have to go all the way back, some of you probably, to high school. Not a drop of alcohol? You didn't go to your first kegger and go, what's in the solo cup, bro? What's this pink punch thing? Nope, none of it? None of it. Not one party? Nope. Not even that first party where the pretty blonde was in the corner and you were trying to get up the gumption to ask her to dance? Nope. I can't even imagine what that's like. I remember I had my very first drink. It was a what do you call it? Field trip. And in sophomore year in high school, they took us to see some play, Carmen, at the Met down in New York City. I was in Connecticut. And they said, okay, everybody meet back here at like 5 p.m. And we all looked at each other and went, so what are we supposed to do now? Come on in, we're going to enjoy the play. But then we're going to meet back here at 5? All right, so we sat for the play, and we made our plan. One guy was going to get up and go to the bathroom, and the next guy was going to get up and go to the bathroom. So like 5 of us had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and we found this we left and found this little pub that was one of the side streets. Madison, it was called the Madison Avenue Pub. And we walked in, and we were big football players, so back then the drinking age was only 18, and the guy didn't check a single ID. What do you guys want? Can I have a beer? And we ordered beer. That was our first drinks, all 5 of us. Lost it the first as sophomores. So I can't imagine this man saying, nope. Went through 4 years of college, went to every business and social function, and never had a drink. Think about how strong that message is that his brother gave to him.
Knuckle down, you were a hard worker.
And I don't smoke. I don't smoke. And I'm a hard worker. Well, he worked, but he just had the curse, It's a curse. And it was tough. It was a tough.
Has gone through 2 presidencies. He's been a successful business person for decades in New York City. I've read his books. I've watched The Apprentice. Many of you probably watched The Apprentice. And here it is on June 11th of 2025. And I'm just finding out this multifaceted man played the flute. And I'm like, you're telling me all the interviews you've ever done, this is the first time Miranda Devine is so good at pulling this information out of him that we got just a nugget that we've never heard before, a different side of him. I love this interview because it wasn't all politics. It was getting to know him. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, you're opening up about your brother being an alcoholic and how you never took a drink. And, now we're finding out that the president played the flute. I mean, I could see him as a guitar player, maybe in there, banging drums or something. The flute? Would never have thought of that, would you?
Did you like it?
I had flute lessons. That's the first person that's ever asked me that crazy question. Yeah, I had flute. Can you believe it? I could have been a flutist.
See? You're the first person that ever asked me that question. Think of how many interviews this guy has done in the span of the last 50 years. And nobody ever wants to get to know the person behind all of this, either through fear, intimidation, being an opponent. They never get a chance to meet people. And of course, once he became prominent and politician, they definitely don't want you to see this side of him. No way. Great job, Miranda.
No, I didn't particularly like it. I don't know. It wasn't for me. And my mother had me with, I had instructors, an instructor come in to teach me how to play the flute. Can you believe that? Who would think?
I can't imagine it.
An unusual instrument.
You could maybe still do it.
I doubt it. I don't think so. But, it is what it is that happens. Things like that.
All right. So in this section here, it's very quick, but she had asked him about Elon Musk. And so you're starting to see what's happening in the news right now. He's saying things, Elon's saying things, and that meeting of the minds is coming back. So right now he's going to address the rift between he and Elon.
Happened. I don't blame him for anything. That I was a little disappointed.
Could you reconcile?
Say it?
Could you reconcile with him? Do you think? Could you forgive him?
I guess I could, but we have to straighten out the country.
I just wanted to point something out because she's pulling this information out. Notice how she's sitting. She's leaning and he's leaning. He's into talking to her. She has made him feel comfortable. And because you make somebody feel comfortable, their defenses have broken down. And he's enjoying himself. And I'm thinking to myself, man, all the pressures that are on him, he's like, yeah, I'll talk to Miranda. What time do I have to meet Miranda? Oh, 1:15? All right, she's got 15 minutes. Let's go. And within that, whatever that time frame was that she had to speak to him, you had to come in, once you pass security, you had to greet him. And then once you greeted him, you had to settle him down and make him feel comfortable. So you don't want to come at him with, so what are you going to do about the... No, hey man, so talk to me about your dad, your mom. And most of us, including probably most of you, if people started talking to you about your childhood, even the good stuff or the bad stuff, it's stuff that if you're willing to answer, you're dropping your guard. And at that point, he had dropped his guard.
Country, transgender for everyone, all of this stuff, and it was killing our country. No, our country's back. We're really back. We have the hottest country in the world right now.
You must be incredibly proud of Melania, of the First Lady, of what she's been through. I mean...
Perfect. Now you've gone from his childhood, his brother and his parents and playing the flute to the next thing that would make somebody feel comfortable. And how she came into this question was awesome because it gives him no choice but to lay his guard down. Yeah, you must be proud of your wife, right? Okay, I'm gonna jump right in that because yeah, of course I am. That was stunning. Again, I like to pick snippets that he does in interviews because I've read his books and everything else, and people have often said, "How does this guy do this? How is he constantly everywhere, talking to people, doing interviews, energy?" And I think he's doing that. I think many of you agree as well that President Trump is doing a great job as president. And if it weren't for the fact of Democrats and rhinos working against him, it would be even better job. Hey, listen, with everything going on, it's funny. After dinner last night, my grandson was like, what are we looking at doing? How can I get involved in investing? And so Robin and I took him to the bank yesterday. He opened up his first checking account, gave him a deposit, and said, just, now if you need something, you now have the freedom. Mom's on the account, so she's going to be able to monitor your account, so don't think you do anything crazy. But he asked us at dinner, and I said, start looking at this stuff. He goes, I don't know if I can afford gold and silver. And like, this is $33. So you can say to yourself, I want to buy some silver, or I want to go and get a new pair of sneakers or something, which are more than $130 anyway, but this is 30. And this is a piece of gold. You can start this small and begin putting your portfolio together. At 16, 32, and I believe this is like 300. By the time you graduate from college, let's say you bought one of those even a month. By the time you're a senior in college, you're going to be sitting really, really well. You've got, 12 months left in this year, and then so that's like 48 months. You have 48 of these. You're going to be sitting with some cash that you didn't even have to pay for. It just comes out of your account that you're being given. Not an allowance. It's actually trying to help him learn what to do and invest with. One of the ways I like to tell you guys, if you're interested, and we'll have Kevin Demerit on here Saturday during the parade talking about gold and silver as well. Let's take a listen. We're in a very volatile time right now. There's plenty of financial uncertainty. Now is not the time to be speculative. And I'm also speaking from a personal perspective. I'm buying income-producing real estate, and I'm buying gold and silver. A lot of people don't know the difference between the economy and the stock market. And too many people listen to the news and social media. That'll get you in trouble. Let's face it. It's obvious that a lot of people have an agenda they're not telling you about. Right now, your best bet is stability. And that means you might need to build a hedge against global volatility. May I recommend gold and silver to you? Real gold and real silver. Not paper, not certificates. Actual gold and silver. What gold and silver can give you is absolute peace of mind. A stock is only as good as the company behind it. It's merely a piece of paper. One of the things I can tell you is that many people are finding out the hard way that some of their investments were built on quicksand. Gold will never be worth zero. Silver will never be worth zero. If you want to calm some of your fears, give my friends at Lear Capital a call today at 800-601-5430 or go to learberry.com. Just so you know, Lear Capital has over 27 years of experience, thousands of 5-star reviews, and over $5 billion in trusted transactions. And Lear is the only gold company with a 24-hour risk-free purchase guarantee. You don't pay unless you're 100% satisfied. So go to learberry.com. If you want peace of mind, give my friends at Lear Capital a call at 800-601-5430. Or look down here below and go to learberry.com. And don't forget to ask about getting up to $15,000 in free gold or silver with a qualifying purchase. Don't wait. Do it now. Nobody knows what tomorrow holds. Be safe. I just want to say thank you to the Fanfare community. And if you're new here, I'd like to take a moment and welcome you. If you watch my videos, you've probably realized at this point that this isn't your usual podcast. The difference is that every single day, I try to make this show an open conversation amongst friends. You see, I believe that speaking to friends, here and in your own circle offline, is the best way to push back against all the lies being told by the Democrats and the media. I encourage people in this community to welcome each other, and in doing so become a source of support for those seeking to unplug from the matrix. If you'd like to communicate on a deeper level, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, but if you'd really like to surround yourself with like-minded patriots, join our free and private X group by going to fanfareshop.org/group. When you join this free group, a few things will happen. One, if you haven't used X before, you can use X without venturing into the sewer that it sometimes can be. Two, you can share content with friends that you meet here. 3, you will get notified every time I go live, so you can't count on YouTube notifications. And 4, and this might be most important, you get content that I can't share on YouTube or Rumble. So please take a moment and join our free and private X group. Just go to fanfareshop.org/group. Remember, it's members only. There are 16,000 plus people in that group right now, getting close to 17,000. To join our free and private members only X group, just go to fanfareshop.org/group. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Somebody said if there's no picture of my grandson catching the sailfish, then it didn't happen. Well, nice try, but I'm not putting my grandson's picture at 16 years old out here. But I do have like the next best thing. Let me see if I can pull down the fish without showing his face and stuff, because there's crazies out there. See, I don't mind myself if people like try to drive me crazy, but I don't like my family. That's why you don't see Robin on too much or anything like that. But let me see if I can pull this up. Did I download it? This is him. This is the fishy being pulled into the boat. You can see the sailfish right there, and his beak, or what do you call it, his bill is out there. But that's the fishy. That's the fishy. People at the taxidermy said they did tag and release, and then what they're going to do is they brought it out to the water so they could take a picture, so they could make a replica, and it's going to be like 7.5 feet once it's done. And Ashley's like, "Where am I putting that thing? I'm gonna put it right on your wall over your television." Well, I can't mess up the decor of my house. I'm like, it's a trophy, and it didn't even die. It got put back in the water. So, man, that's awesome. All right, so let me continue. Wow, we've already been here for 2 hours. Yeah. All right, so did I finish this? Let me just make sure if I finished. Yeah, President Trump is. All right, so let's talk about Maxine Waters. In planning today's show, I'm like, am I going to go through all this craziness now? I'm just going to show a small group of clips to show how stupid the Democrats are, and to underscore what I told you on Sunday, that their objective will be, and it's funny, I did it on Sunday night, and I told you on Sunday, their objective will be to make you think nothing ever happened, everything's fine, don't believe your lying eyes. And then she actually said, don't believe your eyes.
And even those who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot, nobody was killed. Get it in your head. And so when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point.
See, Maxine is a little old and senile. She got that Muppet on her head and stuff. And so she has to, like, sometimes people should reel her in, because she just dropped a little hint there for you. She wasn't supposed to say that. I'm sure the Democrats didn't want her to say it, but they're obviously talking about it, and it flew out of her mouth. Let me rewind a couple seconds. Look at here, Auntie Maxie completely blow it here.
Your head. And so when martial law is called, what are you going to...
When martial law is called. The fact that she said that, she's thinking it, they're talking it, it's coming, right? Oh, it's coming. Yeah, baby, Andrew Jackson is about to show up. Andrew Jackson, party of one, your table is ready. Yes, it's coming. It's not an if. It's just a matter of when. And they know it. And Auntie Maxie, because she's got something on her head, she's got some sort of infected brain right now, she just blurted it out. She didn't say if they try to do it. No, when they do it.
Say, I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know.
Told you Sunday. I didn't see anything. Nothing happened. But it's all over the television. We're watching it. No, you don't see anything. I'm telling you. So the fact of the matter is, her constituents, whoever they are, idiots, and people who listen to her, and other Democrats, all weekend long for the last 3 days. Oh, there's nothing to see here. No, I swear, I could literally, if I have to do the first show tomorrow, you let me know in the comments. I have a whole bunch of these people going, nothing happening. Nope, you're lying. Nothing's happening. La 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 la. Over. And then the other thing that they say just drives me crazy. You guys have heard, well, I'll save that. Let's listen to her.
And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people, what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So, first of all, get it straight. And don't just rely on what you're being told or the few incidents that you saw.
A few moments. Don't rely on it. It's a figment of your imagination. These people are so good, it's deep fakes. Except this happened.
Later. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is your reaction to Congresswoman Maxine Waters repeatedly saying that there has been no violence in the LA riots? And do you believe that Democrats are making a mistake by not talking about what's really going on?
Clearly, the Democrats are making a mistake by taking the wrong side here, and I'm just going to, in my southern gentlemanly way, say bless her heart to Maxine Waters. I don't even know how to comment on Maxine Waters anymore. It's madness. I'm going to be charitable and leave it right there. Yes, sir.
All of this is why
the aliens won't talk to us. I mean, I see what you see, what the American people see. I mean, no disrespect to Congresswoman Waters, but somebody needs to tell her that the voices in her head are not real. Point two, I've listened to so many of my colleagues and members of the media say that these are mostly peaceful protests. That's like saying that Harvey Weinstein is mostly a feminist because he didn't rape every woman who came into his office. He only raped some of them. Number three, in terms of Governor Newsom, he's flip-flopped a lot, Sean, on issues, but the governor's been very consistent on one thing: his antipathy toward the lives and feelings of ordinary Americans, including public safety. Governor Newsom his record shows this. He's the dictionary definition of weenie. He thinks cops are a bigger problem than criminals. He thinks if a cop has to shoot a criminal, it's automatically and always a cop's fault. But if a criminal shoots a cop, it's automatically and always the gun's fault. Here's a tip. Cops don't leave you alone unless you do illegal stuff. That's what we're seeing in California.
You see, one of the things that they said a lot, Karen Bass said it, Gavin Newsom said it yesterday. They were like, this happened, and this happened, and everything was fine until Trump did this. Until Trump caused the escalation. Until Trump made these people do this stuff. And as you hear people say stuff like that because you're an adult, you have to realize that nobody was pulling these people across the highway. Nobody was taking their arms and throwing stuff. Nobody was flipping the lighter and burning stuff. That was 100% them doing that. And so what you're saying is that these people have zero personal accountability. They can't do anything. They are completely devoid of personal accountability. If something, and they're crazy then. So essentially that's what you're saying. They're insane. When somebody can tell you, go jump off a bridge, you're going to go jump off a bridge? You know what your parents used to say. Oh, Johnny's doing it. Well, if Johnny jumps off a bridge, you're going to jump off a bridge? You're like, no. These people would say yes. Trump is making me do this. Trump's in Washington. The National Guard is standing there. The police are standing there. They're not hunting you. You're choosing to leave your house or whatever rock you pull out from underneath. Go to wherever the police are. Decide you're going to put on a mask and become a complete stank-ass miscreant. Not take a shower for a couple days, not work, not do anything. Just go hang out in the street, cause problems, spit at cops, light things on fire. And it's all Trump's fault. How did Trump get you to leave your abode wherever that abode was? How did he come over and move the rock and pull you out of your hole? Nope. That was you. Did he make you go get the mask and dress up in black stuff? Nope. That was you. Did he give you the Molotov cocktail? Nope. Did he take the Molotov cocktail and take your arm and go like that? Nope. I could go on and on, but you get the point. How the hell did Trump make them do this? Everything was fine until Trump escalated things. No, what you're saying, Gavin Newsom, and what you're saying, Karen Bass, is that people in your constituency have zero personal accountability. They do not have the ability to discern right from wrong. You are describing psychopaths. You're making excuses. You're going on television and telling people Trump caused it. I can 100% tell you there's nothing that Donald Trump can do. There's nothing that Gavin Newsom could do that would make me leave house here, drive to said spot, and begin throwing bricks at cops. But you're telling the world that Trump made them do it. See, that's where you start really delving into things and going, these people are bat poop crazy. There's a serious, serious problem. And they've got no way out of it. Once you acknowledge that the people that you lead have no ability to sustain themselves, no ability to restrain themselves, and no personal accountability, you don't have constituents, you have orcs. You have decided at this point that the Eye of Saruman, or I think that's how you name, is controlling these people, and as soon as they hear the word Trump, they're done. They're psychopaths. That's what you're telling the world. Because every single other one of us is sitting back going, how did Trump cause that? Please explain to me, like I'm two. How did Trump cause this idiot to start throwing bricks at ICE cars? He brainwashed them? No, it's ridiculous. And that's why I said there's not much to show here, because they're idiots. And they're trying to brainwash people. So why would I want to engage in brainwashing you more? Doesn't make any sense to me. Shouldn't make any sense to you, especially as you live your life. Because I'm sure you have to live your life under certain rules. You just can't drive through red lights because you feel like it. You have to live a certain way. In California, oh, watch out. Somebody might cause you to live this way. I can't control myself right now. I'm a nut job, and don't set me off because it's your fault. Well, I got Chris Moritz up here, and I want Chris to talk to you and tell you what exactly is happening in California. Hey everybody, I've got an interview with you today from somebody who has literally wrote the book on what's happening in Los Angeles right now. The name of the book is The Failed State, a portrait of California in the twilight of empire. His name is Christopher Moritz. Christopher, thank you for joining us today.
Delighted.
All right, so I with everything that's going on out there right now, I want to jump right into this. What the hell happened to California? How did it go from being such a prestigious state, a crown jewel, if you will, of the American dream, to what is now looking like a dystopian cautionary tale?
Well, it's a long, kind of a complicated story. Obviously, California is in and of itself a kind of civilization, a society, and its degradation that has been so acute and visible to everyone in the world, really, that pays attention, is shocking, and I think something that will be studied by historians for a long, long time. And it can really be framed in the context of other societies and other empires, if you will, that have also experienced a collapse in civil society. And that is what we are going through. And my book is about crime. You know, there's a lot of different angles to California's demise, but mine is specifically about crime, and it's about immigration and the intersection of these two concepts. And in California, the Democratic Party has leveraged the power of demographic changes. In fact, I call it demographic engineering by way of illegal immigration considerably, though not exclusively, to achieve a political hegemony within the state of California, by which has come the one-party state, and with a one-party state follows corruption, follows mismanagement, follows lack of accountability, follows lack of competition, and therefore lack of discipline. And so you have politicians like Karen Bass, Kamala Harris, and Gavin Newsom sort of at the higher end of this cadre, failing upwards continuously because they're not actually held accountable for mismanagement or even the current state of the state of California, there is no accountability. Their only concern and prerogative is acting as servants of the machine and the political milieu of which they are a part, and which centers around certain enclaves in San Francisco. That is a fundamentally different paradigm as well. California's power and economy used to be more, let's say, diffuse across the state. Southern California in particular was historically a red voting jurisdiction, or region, I should say. And San Francisco had always been progressive. But as manufacturing left Southern California, particularly aerospace and defense manufacturing, Los Angeles County flipped and became a Democrat stronghold. When that happened, the Uniparty was formed. And power in this Uniparty emanates from San Francisco, which formed a kind of unholy alliance with Silicon Valley. So we now have a situation where I think oligarchy is an appropriate moniker to describe this system.
How does it benefit oligarchy type people, billionaires and very rich celebrities? How does it benefit them to live in a, how California's evolving?
Yeah. So, it's a good question. And there's a couple different elements to that. One, I think we can confidently assert that the billionaire donor class, the institutional class that funded far left politicians and DA types like George Gascon, Pamela Price, and others, they are very much insulated from the immediate ramifications of the explosion in crime and the spread of crime across the city of Los Angeles and well beyond its kind of historical enclaves that characterized, let's say, gang violence in the 90s. Gang violence in the 90s was very much concentrated to certain parts of South Los Angeles. But today, the violence and the criminality touches every aspect of the city. And this is not just a Los Angeles problem. This is something we see across California. So the billionaires that put in place these politicians and back these legislative initiatives that have decriminalized the state and released so many prisoners back onto the streets, they are for sure motivated by I think a kind of I think it's the resentment that a super elite has against, let's say, the middle class beneath it.
Wow.
Hurting the middle class is of no consequence to this circle of donors. In fact, I think it's a driving force. But it's not the only reason that these kinds of policies are pursued and funded. It's also, there's of course, in this system, as I indicated, there's a corruption angle. I believe that it's entirely plausible and reasonable to hypothesize that billionaires who have destroyed downtowns through the backing of policies and politicians who have effectuated the criminal unrest, there are financial elements to this. Let's not forget that as downtown real estate, as the real estate value for downtown areas and really even beyond that have taken a hit from an insurgency in crime and other degradations as is so visible in San Francisco. This creates a softer market for acquisitions, especially where there's not necessarily a competition on the demand side. So, look, I think that I think that it's not just a sort of Democrat, Republican, progressive, conservative paradigm. It goes much deeper than that, and ultimately, where a polity is without competition and is a single party entity, the driving force and the fuel that feeds the beast is power for the sake of power.
Wow. But I mean, even if the values of I I've been in real estate for 25, 30 years. Even if you can buy properties at a discount, you still have to either resell them or rent them out. Who are they going to build? BlackRock.
BlackRock is a great example of an institution that is backed through various means, progressive policies, criminal justice reform movement, and decriminalization efforts in the state. Meanwhile, they are buying across the country residential real estate at an enormous pace, and they can do so because the effects of interest rates and the effects of insurance really don't have any bearing on these acquisitions. And when you think about making those kinds of add-ons in a economy that is has taken such a hit from exogenous factors like crime, well, it suddenly has a kind of investment thesis to it that adds additional clarity, I think, to the question of why. Why are they supporting these policies? Why is this happening in California? It's not just ideology. That's a factor, but it's not that alone.
I mean, down here in South Florida, there are certain pockets of South Florida where BlackRock and the other ones have been chased out because they couldn't buy them cheap enough to sustain the values of the properties and different things. So they've had to basically pull out. A lot of the big corporate buyers have pulled out of here because the way the market is. Why isn't, or do you foresee California being able to turn that around? Or is it because the influx of illegals and the people with the ability to pay just aren't staying anymore?
Well, I would say that the California regulatory regime, which is the most Byzantine in the entire country, has added so much to the cost of living and the cost of commerce in California that only super large institutions can really afford the compliance costs of meeting those regulations, and so it is a policy prescription that may ostensibly be about progressive values and kind of typical democratic motivations related to climate change, equity, etc. But the fact is that it has also benefited institutions that can afford to absorb those costs. Whereas middle-class people, who came to California for the single-family home California dream, that's not feasible anymore, and they're leaving. 12 million have left the state in the last 10 years at least.
Then how does it sustain itself? I mean, I guess if they're doing Section 8 and have government programs where people have their rent paid or subsidized, but without those continued subsidies from the federal government, how does it sustain that market?
Right. It's not sustainable because what we have is a political economy that is not really resembling in a meaningful way what we typically associate with American values and kind of American enterprise, and that being a large middle class and sort of the bell curve should be very obvious, right? A large middle class, small lower class, and a very small super rich. But in California, we have simply cut out the middle part. We cut out, and you have a situation where the top 10% make 67 times in annual salary and earnings what the bottom 30% man. So it's a difference between, I believe, $750,000 a year and $20,000.
When you were researching for your book, and I'm sure as you dug through, how does California's decline, what does it reveal about the same radical progressive policies spreading across other areas of the country?
Yeah. Well, look, California is a gateway. What happens here represents, I think, like the ghost of Christmas future, right? And so everyone in the nation who cares about living in clean cities, affordable, affordable single family homes, and pursuing the American dream, everyone should be very, very alert to what has happened and the degradation that has happened to California. I do not think that. I mean, let's also establish the fact that the Democratic Party, the leadership of the Democratic Party, significantly comes from California. So the policies and ultimately the type of system that they have cultivated in this state, and which has aggrandized and entrenched their power without challenge, that is what they ultimately want to pursue across the country. And Joe Biden tried to do exactly that by flooding the border with 10 million illegal aliens to achieve and effectuate the kind of demographic engineering that California has pursued since the 90s, and which has resulted in a foreign-born population of 27%, which is the highest in North America. And as that foreign population increases, their power becomes that much greater.
As people are seeing things unfold in California right now, and I understand it's a part of California, basically LA, and now we're seeing some stuff in San Francisco, has this ideology now been exposed as a failed experiment, or do you think they still have the ability to continue their overreach?
Yeah, look, I think there are indications that Californians have pushed back and even become responsibly aware of the circumstances of life here. And in the last election, Los Angeles County overwhelmingly rejected the extreme progressive, I think anarchist is a better description, but the anarchist DA, George Gaston, as well as other anarchist DAs in the state. They are gone. But, and in addition, the California voters passed a ballot initiative called Prop 33 that unwound a lot of the really terrible and destructive elements of the famous 2014 proposition, Prop 47, which effectively legalized stealing, reducing stealing under $950 to a misdemeanor from a felony. So this latest initiative, Prop 33, which Gavin Newsom, by the way, strongly objected to and challenged, this has taken a blow. So I guess that represents a positive sign, and there are some very unusual kind of swings that took place in this last election in California. California actually did go more towards Trump than it had in past elections, and so the swing from where California was on Trump in 2016 or 2020 compared to 2024 was rather profound, and where that new support is coming from is actually one of the most interesting facts about the whole system, and I think something we have to explore. And this is a story that was reported by Mother Jones, right? A leftist magazine, but I'd say intellectually honest within the scope of being a leftist magazine. They looked at districts in California, like districts in East Los Angeles that are 99% Latino, and of which many are illegal aliens.
Right.
They went into these districts and did interviews with locals, and what they found was that by sheer numbers, these places went more towards Trump than anywhere else in the state, and they did so significantly more than the so-called white coastal districts like Santa Monica, where I'm from, which actually went more towards Kamala than it had in 2020. So Mother Jones goes to interview people in East LA, and what they found was that these people actually are motivated by Trump's strong policies on immigration, because they don't like seeing the new illegal aliens come in,
Right.
even though they themselves are in many cases illegal aliens.
That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And also, coming from Mexico or different other areas, they really don't like some of the progressive policies that we see in California and some of the different states. They're not into the LGBTQ. They're not into drag queens. They're not into I can't say the word here. We call it baby removal. Those are things that, they may have their own idiosyncrasies, but they don't like a lot of the stuff that most progressives want them to like. So I think they're going to have a continued shock. So in your research, are you finding that basically at this point California might or could be a red state if it weren't for all of the illegals?
It's hard to say that, but we can say that before the influx of these new voters, this foreign presence coming from Latin America primarily, but not exclusively, and again, this period that took us from foreign-born population in the teens in the 90s to 27% today, that is directly correlated with the Democrats' power in the state. So, in a sense, yes. But I think that it has more to do with the fact that the Democratic Party weaponized these demographic changes by offering state benefits to these newcomers and illegal aliens that have entrenched both the illegal aliens and the Democratic Party in the state.
Right. And so why does it seem, it seems from the outside looking in, that the Democrats and their progressive policies seem to prioritize criminals over the victims? Why? I say it seems that way. You're there. Is it true?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I think that it really represents a kind of mentality that is not only sociopathic, but it really has historical linkages to revolutionary moments in history where criminals were effectively enlisted to advance the political agenda and ultimately the power of the party.
Right.
So with criminal justice reform movement and its kind of more extreme elements, which I liken to a phrase I call crime equity, we have a system where the welfare of criminals takes precedence over the welfare of law-abiding civilians, because the policies are theoretically and ostensibly meant to address historical grievances, particularly racial grievances, and therefore that is paramount first, and the only kind of motivation that they feel the criminal justice system should take into account when considering sentencing in particular, but also the enforcement of the penal code.
That's insane. So what essentially becomes the human cost? I'm pretty sure you probably have incurred some human costs from writing this book. I'm sure some of the residents are incurring a human cost. Is that not even taken into consideration?
So the reason I wrote this book is because in 2023, my home in Santa Monica was home invaded 2 nights in a row.
Wow.
By an MS-13 gangster, convicted felon, illegal alien from El Salvador who had been deported by Trump in 2018 when he got out of state prison, and who came back into the country under the Biden cloak of the Biden invasion, and went on a crime spree in the fall of 2023, committing dozens of these kinds of home invasion style, or what's called hot prowl burglary, meaning the victim is home at the time of the burglary, of the robbery.
Wow.
And so it's a super aggressive and violent, I would say, violent crime. The penal code recognizes it as such. But yet, in 2023, when this happened to me, not only were no charges brought against the guy that we ultimately discovered did this, all of this, up and down the coast in LA County, there were no charges brought in Santa Monica against him, no charges brought in Los Angeles County against him. Only in Ventura County to the north of LA, where crime is taken a little bit more seriously, was he actually charged and tried, sentenced. But even then, it was only to a 2-year jail term and a $300 fine. And he was only found guilty of 2 counts of these.
Wow.
This is a guy that is not just a sort of a cat burglar, right? He's not just a harmless cat burglar. When he was arrested by Ventura County police, on his person were stolen loaded gun, body armor, knives, and other paraphernalia that gave every indication that this guy intended to do violence. And in fact, in his interrogation after being arrested, the lead detectives came to him and thanked him for not opening fire on them when he was arrested. And he said, "Don't thank me, because if my wife and kid had not been in the backseat of the car at the time of arrest, I was planning on opening fire and murdering you, because I'm never going back to jail."
Wow. Wow. And you guys, I don't even know, what is the law in California for homeowners to arm themselves?
Well, we can certainly arm ourselves, under the protections of the Second Amendment, but California has in place all sorts of enhanced liabilities for, let's say, incidents of confrontation where a homeowner would open a fire and cause injury or death to an intruder. It is not a stand your ground state like Florida and Texas.
Yeah.
And so there's a heightened presumption that has to be overcome relating to were you sufficiently in danger when the illegal alien MS-13 gangster broke into your house?
Yes, if he comes in the house, I am in imminent danger. That's not enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. So are these open border policies, because you mentioned MS-13, are they enabling actual cartel activity, or are these offshoot gangs in California neighborhoods?
So I talked to many police officers and prosecutors in researching my book, and what came from that in terms of the contours of the criminal economy and organized crime in the state was the following. The cartels of Mexico effectively control organized crime in the state of California and really the entire criminal economy, the $100+ billion criminal economy of the state of California. And they do this through a number of ways. One, they control all dope trade in the state. and they have done so continuously since probably around the late 2000s.
Okay.
When they came into California and places like Los Angeles to effectuate a hostile takeover of the dope trade, they said to local legacy gangs, really black gangs like the Bloods and the Crips, who had a monopoly in this vertical up until that point. They said to them, if we catch you selling dope without our permission, without paying tribute and a tariff to them, we will cut your head off. And they meant it literally. So in short order, legacy black gangs understood that the risk of engaging in the dope business was no longer worth the prospects of that kind of retaliation. And so they shifted to other areas of crime like residential burglary, prostitution, and so on. But the cartels dug in deeper, and the cartels ultimately became the sort of master and of all Latino gangs in the state. Because all Latino gangs in the state, whether they're Venezuelan or El Salvadorian or Mexican, they actually all report to a single entity, a single gang inside California state prisons that really runs the streets from California state prisons, and that's called the Mexican Mafia. The Mexican Mafia ultimately adheres to the cartels. So they answer the cartels, and all the gangs answer them. So by logical syllogism, the cartels run all these proxy gangs, and that is how they can implement and spread their empire.
You know, we see it on TV. You've researched it. People have talked to you about it. Obviously, the governor knows about it. Obviously, the attorney general knows about it, and I'm sure the president knows about it. What would it take to eradicate that? To just make sure it's gone?
So I think what's very important to keep in mind about what's taking place in downtown Los Angeles over the last few days is that far from being an expression of authoritarianism and anti-constitutionalism, we have a situation where President Trump has assumed the mantle of liberator. Liberator of the people of California, the good people of Los Angeles, who have been held hostage by the regime for many, many years. And that includes being victims of the gang violence, of the drug empires, and so this confrontation that's taking place is not only to liberate us from the state, but it's also, I think, signifying the first domestic battle in the war that I think we'll all see intensify against the Mexican drug cartels.
When you say intensify, what do you mean?
Well, I think that we can expect the Trump administration to follow through on its campaign promises related to the border, and the border relates to the cartels because the cartels controlled the border during the Biden years. Everyone who crossed the border, those 10 million people, every single one of them did so with the sanction of the cartels. They were paid by the cartel. The cartels took shares from them, and so the Trump administration has made it very clear that dismantling that control is paramount to national security and national sovereignty. And I think, given the fact that the cartels have killed more Americans than any of our enemies in recent history, and by a significant margin, their dismantlement and neutralization is ultimately paramount to achieving the kind of revitalization in our cities that is the heart of MAGA.
So as you're watching this seeming collapse of civic order in California, what kind of warning should the rest of the country take from all of this?
So what's happening right now, the unrest, the mayhem in California, should not surprise anyone. Certainly it should not surprise anyone who lives in California. It was an inevitability because the one-party machine here has gone increasingly rogue. And it has pursued policies like the sanctuary state policy codified in Senate Bill 54. That has ramifications across the nation because California is a gateway to the nation. Most of the nation's illegal fentanyl comes in through ports of entry in California.
Okay.
Gang violence spreads, cartel violence spreads from California. Look, the cartels even have a footprint not only in every city in the United States, every major city, but even in far northern Montana on Indian reservations. So it is comprehensive and it is profound. And the California tragedy will not happen in isolation unless we isolate.
So last night when Governor Newsom gave his speech, it almost seemed like a call to arms. He actually said, you got to get out in other states as well. That kind of concerned me. It's almost like it's time they're triggering this, anti-revolution. What should other states look for to see if the trajectory of bad trends begins happening in their states? Obviously, the drugs and everything else, but this week, I think we're going to see massive amount of celebrations. Is that going to be something that's indicative that it's happening in your area, or people being paid to go there?
Okay, so great. It's a great question. One, I think we should include that there is nothing inherently radical or revolutionary, for sure, about Gavin Newsom. Mm-hmm. It would imply agency if we were to describe that to him. He does not have agency. Gavin Newsom is not a real human being. Okay? He is a product.
Right.
A product that has been marketed very effectively to the sort of locuses of power in California, and that is the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. It's unions, it's the tech sector, it's the cabal. So what we're seeing with Gavin Newsom, as we've seen across his career, is always reactive. It's like he's an NPC, right? Mm-hmm. He's not like Trump. He's not a disruptor in and of himself. He reacts to situations, and when he reacts, it's performance art. Mm. It's always about getting to the next next level of his career, and advancement through failure. Kamala Harris has a very similar kind of quality to her, as do many politicians in California who fail up. They don't actually achieve anything. They respond to events. They remain sort of within the parameters of the party, and they stick to that. So when Gavin Newsom, the notion that Gavin Newsom is going to be some sort of catalyzing figure, a heroic figure, I think is a fantasy. But that doesn't make him less dangerous in terms of prospects, let's say, nationally for him, but also in terms of setting precedent. And as far as outside agitators go, that is for sure taking place, and that took place during the 2020 riots. Los Angeles law enforcement officers told me that was absolutely apparent in 2020, that out-of-state professional agitators and anarchists led a lot of the sparked and contributed to a lot of the violence during the BLM George Floyd protests. So that is taking place here, but it's not like that. That's exclusively who you're seeing on the street. Who you're seeing on the street are the anarchists, are the paid protesters, are the agitators, that have institutional money, and I have some theories on where that comes from. But there's also the illegal alien gang element. That's committing, I think, a lot of the violence, a lot of the looting. And beyond that, we also have, the kind of naive, politically charged leftist, activist.
Yeah.
So it's not just a single. There's not just like a single profile, but nevertheless, like they are operating kind of in unison, and the violence is collective.
What are we going to have to change? Because obviously change is going to be the only catalyst. And I think, one of the things I keep telling people in videos and on X is you're going to have to make the change. You can't wait for your government to do so because by then it's too late. So what has to change in California, and what's your advice for people outside of California to stop this chaotic activity?
Well, on the crime angle, the California tragedy can very much be traced to legislation that began in 2010, 2011 in response to Supreme Court mandates regarding prison population, and that was the catalyst. And as laws came into place relating to de-incarceration and reducing the density of prison populations in the state, we began down this dark road and path that brought us to a point where you are more likely to get robbed, burglarized, beaten, and carjacked in California than any other place in the nation, and in some cases by more than double.
Wow.
So people should be very aware of laws coming out of their state legislatures and on ballot initiatives related to the justice system and attempts to mollify the justice system to redress, let's say, historical and racial grievances, as has been the motivator ostensibly in California. So that's something I think people should be vigilant towards. And as far as solutions for California, look, I think that's a to be determined, right? There may be no restoring the California dream.
Wow.
That we think of. It may not be possible. The problems may be too entrenched. I think that the state is too big to be managed by, Sacramento.
Right.
I think if you were to break up California into 4 states, that would significantly repair a lot of the damage that we're seeing every day in our neighborhoods and on our freeways. But I don't know if that's even remotely feasible. But I think we're talking about that level of drastic response that would be necessary to curate cure the kind of situation we find ourselves in today that is so insidious.
That was going to be my last question for you. I was going to say, as a California resident, is it too late? And you just pretty much answered it. So what are your plans moving forward? So you've written a book. You're almost seemingly at the point where you believe it's too late for California. What are you looking to do? Are you going to move out of the state or try to help fix it if it's not too late?
I think that it's a great question. I'm sort of torn because life has definitely gotten a lot worse here, and it seems to be getting worse. But on the same token, I'm a third-generation Californian. I lived in a home that my great-grandparents lived in. This is not this land is in my blood, and I don't want to give it up.
Right.
I don't want to give it up without a fight. Why should we? Why should we surrender the crown jewel of America to this radical element? this destructive, anarchistic element that has transformed much of California into not only just a failed state, but really a vision of the third world.
Yeah. To answer your question, why should you? You shouldn't. You shouldn't have to. My concern is President Trump, even with all the initiatives that he wants to do, he's only got a certain period of time. And who knows what happens in 2028? Who knows how things may shift if they are able to keep cheating or whatever. But what happens if Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris do get into the White House?
Yeah. Well, the one conciliatory sort of note on that issue, and I think it's particular to Gavin Newsom, is the fact that it's well established by insiders that Gavin Newsom is simply an opportunist. Mm-hmm. And he's not a hell-bent radical.
Okay.
So if he were to win, yeah, does that represent a cynical development for the United States? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like if Hillary Clinton had won, right? It's cynicism and opportunism, but it's not necessarily, ushering in the Russian Revolution.
Right.
Now that's only like a consolation prize, right? But I certainly would. It would be a terrible thing because more than anything, it would represent a kind of get out of jail free card for the types of policies and the people who supported these policies that have resulted in California becoming a failed state.
Okay. So I have a last question for you, a new last question. A new last question is if Donald Trump were to give Chris Moritz a call and say, what do you need? What do we need to do? What would you tell him?
Well, we need to unleash federal law enforcement in the state to dismantle the cartel empire, their proxy gangs, the illegal alien element of that. We need to find every opportunity available under the Constitution to limit the damage that California can do by its own state policies, which are they're in effect national trends. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's a kind of wait and see, right? So if Gavin Newsom would actually did withhold tax dollars to the federal government of California, well, at that point, then we're looking at a whole new set of solutions from the administration. I don't think we're there yet. I think what they're doing right now is a great, very important, if for no other reason than symbolic value, to say to the California regime, like, we're no longer going to tolerate this.
Right. I mean, now that he's lost or preliminarily lost his quest to have Trump stopped with the military, you would think it'd wake him up a little bit and go, don't push him too hard, because since they've already given him the approval to do it, there's no stopping him if he wants to send more military in there. So maybe, just maybe, you'll see some change. I don't know if they will, given what he said last night, but Chris, thank you very much for taking the time. It's been very informative. And first and foremost, stay safe out there. It's absolutely nuts. And I hope it calms down. I guess with the curfew, it seems like does the curfew extend to Santa Monica, or is it just downtown LA?
The curfew is just for the downtown area.
Okay. All right. Stay safe. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming on, everybody. Again, the book, if you'd like to go ahead and take a look at it, the book is called The Failed State. Let me bring it up here so you guys can see it. The Failed State, A Portrait of California in the Twilight of Empire. Christopher Moritz, and you can find him on X as well. So thank you very much for the interview, and we'll talk to you guys in 1 second.
back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. More so than enjoy, I hope you guys gleaned some information as to what's happening at Ground Zero. Ground Zero right there. Although Chris is in Santa Monica, which is just about that far away from Los Angeles. If you've ever been there, Rob and I spent some time with the Santa Monica Pier, and you're probably familiar with the historic amusement park out there, and it's right on, was it the PCH, Pacific Coast Highway? Beautiful area, and unfortunately they got to deal with this crap. Speaking of dealing with crap, thank you, SV. SV sent me some information I wanted to bring your way. I don't know anything about this other than what we're seeing right now. This is from Raw Alerts. Breaking: a massive and dangerous, toxic, hazardous chemical leak has occurred at an explosive maker Austin Powder chemical plant, forcing towns to evacuate. Another spill in Ohio. These guys can't catch a break. At this time, numerous emergency and hazardous materials crews are on the scene in Zaleski, Ohio, following a massive and dangerous chemical leak at the Austin Powder explosives manufacturing plant. The leak involves highly dangerous and toxic nitric acid. As 5,000 gallons have been leaked, prompting officials to issue mandatory evacuations as the entire town of Zaleski, Ohio has been evacuated. The entire flipping town. Wow. The FAA has also established a 30-mile no-fly zone around the site, extending up to 23,000 feet in altitude. Okay, hold on. 30 miles around this town called Zaleski, Ohio. You can't fly within 30 miles, and you have to be over 23,000 feet. Oh my gosh. The Red Cross has set up emergency shelters, and authorities are urging the public to avoid the area. Here's a short video, I guess this is of the explosion maybe. And big orange plume right there. Get out. My gosh. Oh, it's already spreading throughout the sky over there. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Ah. Oh man, pray for these people. I don't even know what kind of stuff that thing can do. But the wind is blowing. Man, this is bad. So it looks like somebody asked Grok a question about it. The Austin Powder Plant in Zaleski, Ohio, established in 1930, is a key U.S. site for producing dynamite and blasting agents for mining and construction. A 5,000-gallon nitric acid leak on today prompted evacuation, and a no-fly zone is highly reactive and could cause an explosion if mixed with certain other materials. But no explosion has yet occurred. The potential blast scale is uncertain, but could be significant, similar to past ammonium nitrate incidents, depending on containment and other explosives present. Safety protocols and emergency responses may mitigate risk, but further updates are needed. Now, that makes sense why they're not letting people fly through it, because if they were flying through this crap, that could be, Oh, pray for these people. Pray for these people in Zaleski, Ohio. Crazy. Got a video for you. I'm not even going to preface it. I'm just going to play it. I just want you to hear this insanity.
A week ago, everything was peaceful in the city of Los Angeles and in all of the representatives behind me in their cities as well. Things began to be difficult on Friday when raids took place, and it's important that I begin there because that is the cause of the problems.
No, that's not the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is that you are allowing newcomers to populate your area and looking the other way. You're allowing people to break the law in Los Angeles and getting mad because somebody wants to enforce the law. Get it right.
That have happened in the city of Los Angeles and other cities. This was a this was provoked by the White House. The reason why, we don't know.
How can you be the mayor of a large city like Los Angeles and still not know why ICE is in your city? They are arresting newcomers. A child could understand this. Why do you keep saying, I don't even know what's going on? Why are they even here? There's something wrong. This level of incompetence isn't by accident. And like we were talking to Chris, this is by design. They've put these people in. They've installed them because their only job is to make sure that the cartels can operate with impunity. She has no idea what she's doing. Poor people in Los Angeles who are trying to live a normal life don't even realize at this point that your entire city is governed by somebody who's only there to facilitate the cartels. That's it. She has no clue, and every time she sticks her face in front of a microphone, she just embarrasses herself all over again. But since that came out, I just got a text here. This is going to be interesting. This came out at 3:26 while I was talking to Chris. Breaking. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says now she wants to speak to President Trump. I love this. I love this gif. Yeah, that's exactly what President Trump needs to tell her. That's exactly. What do you mean it's my fault that you've got 1 million or 2 million newcomers in your city and you don't even understand why they're being picked up? Man, when I sit there and talk to people like Chris, good people who are in a bad situation, who are now faced with the aspect of, I have to leave my home. I may have to move someplace where my entire family grew up. I just have to leave because these idiots decided they wanted to trash the entire area. Yeah, you don't hate these people enough. I live in Where'd that go? That went by so fast. Okay. Miriam says, I live in California and we don't believe not even a word of what this thing is saying. It's crazy. The persistent press conferences are not working. No, nobody's buying it because, put it this way, for you to buy what she's saying, you have to believe she's incompetent and you're okay with it. Everything's fine. It started because, ICE decided they wanted to do some raids last Friday. Okay, well then maybe someone in the press there should say, why were they doing raids? They just decided they wanted to flex some muscle, or was there something wrong that they needed to do? Like maybe, round up newcomers. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, then it causes the lack of personal accountability, and people have no sort of restraint. They just have to act out. God. It's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Let's see here. Face reality people have been telling to get out of cities for years. And I understand that's very, very hard. That's very hard because some people, and you just heard a successful person, it's hard. It's hard to just say that and go, I gotta leave. Yeah, if you want to survive here and live a normal life and not pay a gazillion taxes, you're faced with the prospect of leaving. 12 million, I believe he said. That's what gets me. I can't find a feed where the chat agrees with the riots. No, they're on an island. The only chat you might see that agrees with it, if you look at MSNBC or one of those liberal channels that just keeps gaslighting these people. I mean, it's over and over. Look at what Bass used to do in the past. Those of you guys who don't know, she is a former, well, I guess you don't leave. She's a commie, and she used to study under the Castro regime. That's exactly what she did. Yeah, exactly. Somebody said here, yeah, people in California, you see really now who she cares about. It's not you. So it's apparent that we're going to continue, unless this conversation that she's supposed to be having with President Trump, unless she has that talk and somehow comes to her senses or does something, we're going to continue to see the nightly riot. So I'm going to go out to dinner tonight and then say goodbye to Tyler as he heads back home. And that'd be it. We're going to come home, watch the riots again. I can't wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to do two shows, obviously. I'm looking at just checking here to see if there's anything new going on that I can grab you guys. But same old stuff. It's early. It's only 3:45, so the knuckleheads at this point it's only 12:45 in California, so they're just getting out of bed right now. They're getting out of bed, probably figuring out where they've got to go to, stock up. How well's her what do you call it? Curfew doing? Not so well, it seems like. All right, so they'll be doing it again tonight. We'll watch it, and here's what I'm going to ask you. Let me know in the comments. You see, Tyler's got to get up. Well, actually, I got to take him to the airport at 6 o'clock in the morning. We got to be there at 6, so I got to take him. Oh, I may not get any sleep. But if I were, so Robin goes to bed. If I were to do a 10 p.m. show, if I went live at 10 p.m., okay, I need to hear from you guys in the comments. If I were to go live at 10 p.m., would you guys be interested in coming on that late? And we can watch the riots together. So let me know in the comments. SB, if you can check if people want to get up at, be up at 10 to say, let's say we go 10 to midnight. Would you want to come on? Let me know, and I'll seriously consider it. Especially if everybody else is in bed, then I got some free time, and we'll take a look at it. So let me know in the chat if you want me to go live late tonight. I ain't got nothing to do but sleep, so I'd be down with it. You guys let me know. All right, let me do the super chats, and then we'll jump over to the. Well, no, we're not doing a jump over, but we'll do the after party, the regular after party. All right, and this is the right one? Yep. All right. AI won't replace humans, but humans who use AI will replace those who don't. Love how you worded that. Linda H., who owns U.S. debt? I've been trying to find it, and nobody seems to want to tell us. Oops, I started at the bottom by mistake. All right. Brian, I hope your grandson had a great football camp. 7-foot sailfish. Holy smokes, that is awesome. So he had a great football camp, hot as hell, and he caught a 7-foot sailfish, and he caught a mahi as well. So he had a great day today. And now we're getting ready. I got to wake him up, and we're going to go look at a truck. He's having a good granddad time here. Diane Kelly, thank you. Demon of Cybertron, Mexico's president gave it away. The cartel rules, exactly. Brian Newland, was watching Ben Dykes a couple days ago. That is the veteran biker. He reported ICE is over the target of the trafficked children. Maybe. Deanne Hobbs, have you heard of Bass' long history of planning riots? Yeah, she was part of the communist group over there in Castro. Taught her what to do and they elected her mayor. Vielka, welcome back. Very scheduled. April Chapman. I'll have to let Ashley know. April Chapman, I don't know who, but thank you. Cat Fam Life, how could we move the 2028 Olympics? It wouldn't be hard. A city like Miami could easily house it. We've got stadiums out the wazoo. Got big football stadium that could have big soccer. Got a new, the baseball stadium could hold some things. There's college stadiums. There's actual soccer stadiums as well. So we could do it pretty easily. Maybe we'd have to put together a track real quick or something. A lot of arenas that we could do the gymnastics in. So yeah, and stuff like that. Absolutely could do it pretty quickly. And plenty of hotels. And a beach. Yeah, Captain Danny, you had me worried, Barry. Disregard the voicemail. Nope, we're just spending time with the youngin'. Thank you, though. JC, Barry, would you please get this money to Richard Arvo? I don't know Richard Arvo. Maybe he contacted SV. But yes, if we can get a hold of him, yeah, we'll try and do that. Captain Danny, those aren't firecrackers. M80s are lethal. Benedetto Salerno, why would anyone protest our military? People like you and me giving the lives to protect our children, our way of life, our freedom. I know exactly how you're feeling. walking around with Tyler at camp, and I'm older, I'm heavier, I'm not in football shape, and I'm out there and I'm sweating, and Rob's like, "You coming home?" Like, no, I'm watching every second of this. I'm going to make sure he's protected. I'm going to make sure nothing drops out of the sky. I'm here. I know exactly how you feel. Buddy Sanders, Walmart is a big deal on sending money to Mexico. Wonder what if 1.2 billion per week gets sent to Mexico, wonder what the fees are just to some of these places like Walmart. Just talked about AI, yeah. The debt. Naomi McCormick, are people able to get out of LA if they want to, or are they stuck? No, you can get out of LA, but not that many people could just up and leave. Well, then again, 12 million did, so yeah, you can. Donna, I'd love to be on a fly on the wall for that meeting. Oh, she's talking about talking to Karen Bass and Trump. Absolutely. And Donna, again, cartels are probably paying off Newsom and Bass to turn a blind eye. Oh, for sure. Trump said Marines staying for 2 months to keep the peace and offer readiness. No doubt that they're being kept there to, turn a blind eye. And with their handout, no doubt as well, getting some payment. So SV said the comments were basically go ahead and do 10 o'clock. So, yeah, let me just see here. Yes. Well, if we get back from dinner and yeah, I'll post if we do it. SV told me, let's see here. There was a, this is scary. Russia's plan, nukes, a lot of them, land, sea, air. Putin just told top defense officials the nuclear triad will stay front and center in Russia's next-gen weapons push. It's the guarantee of sovereignty, key to global balance. He claims 95% of Russia's strategic arsenal is now fully modernized, calling it the most up-to-date nuclear force on Earth. No mention of the war in Ukraine. No mention of drone strikes that just hit Russian bomber bases. Just a not so subtle reminder, Russia is ready, and they're staying that way. Wow. That's a little scary, to say the least. Wow. What did Karen Bass say something else again? Is this the same one? Hold on, let me. I think that's the same video I just played, but it's got a different comment to it. Let me hear this. No, it's the same video. Okay, just played it. Let's see here. Oh, G Barmore, thank you on Rumble. If your handle comes up telemarketer, you're probably not going to get the phone answered. And Sherry55, Sherry55 says, I see stupid people. The older I get, the less patience I have dealing with these people. Thanks for doing the work in the trenches. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to put the after party on and see what time the youngster wants to get up so we can go look at a truck for him, take him over to the dealership. Then we got dinner, and if we come back home and we're all feeling well, if they want to go to sleep, then I'll probably go live if I've got nothing to do. But thank you very much. Thank you for putting up with the couple days that I had to take off there. But I just family is okay. Family is very, very, very important to me, and with them living in North Carolina, I don't get to see them as often, and so I just wanted to take 2 days and just completely dedicate my time to spending with the young man. 16, very impressionable age, so I wanted to spend. So thank you for allowing me to do that, and thanks for coming back. And let your friends know, if I don't do tonight, we got 2 shows tomorrow. I got to drop them off at the airport, and then I'll be wasted tired, but we'll do something. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Thursday. Yeah, oh, wait a minute. Let me tell you who Ashley has booked for me tomorrow, because in case you can't make it, or I don't make it back tonight. Let's see who we got tomorrow on tap. Tomorrow's Thursday the 12th. Oh, she's got a long one. So we got Ann Vandersteel tomorrow night. That should, if you haven't been following Ann's stuff, she is very, 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 how can I say, pointed. Yeah, that's the word I'll use. Pointed. She's firebrand. Ann Vandersteel. All right, so let's talk about let's play the after party, and I'll see you guys maybe tonight if not for sure tomorrow.